West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We've got a lot this morning. Britta Horn is going to be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. She's the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party, followed by George Brauchler. He's getting a lot of media these days for just being an awesome crime fighter that he is. Geno, Geraci is going to join us. We're going to talk about Trump's big, beautiful bill. Talk about Bernie Sanders and the jet. So much to cover today. So you're going to stick with us throughout the duration of the show. But now it's time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen, news and comment.
Good Monday morning. It's 54 and mostly sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
But I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, two vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jameson and myself.
U.S. and China agree to slash tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, big news this morning. He says America and China working together following weekend talks in Switzerland. Bessent said the two have agreed to pause their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, with both sides lowering rates by 115%.
And I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jameson last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning.
And this morning, another big announcement at the White House, press conference next hour. DJT will be signing one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%. 47 says this will bring fairness to America. The U.S. will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world.
All I do is win, no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get it.
The Rockies fired manager Bud Black and bench coach Mike Redmond over the weekend. Colorado suffered their worst shutout in franchise history on Saturday, 21-0. Third base coach Warren Schaefer will be the interim manager for the remainder of the season, and they beat the Padres 9-3 on Sunday. The Nuggets lose steam and defeated by the Thunder in Game 4 of their series. It's tied at 2 games apiece and heads back to Oklahoma City tomorrow night. DJT posting that he's happy to announce that the last American hostage being held in Gaza, 21-year-old Eden Alexander, is being released and coming home to his family. He's been held hostage since October of 2023. 47 says hopefully this is the first of those final steps necessary to end this brutal conflict between Hamas and Israel. The president will be in the Middle East this week. The White House says that DJT is going to reaffirm his commitment for a free and prosperous region. French media, the state media, is shutting down social media rumors that French President Macron was caught with a bag of cocaine during a train trip to Ukraine. So he's in this conference room on the train with the Chancellor of Germany and UK's Keir Starmer. They let the media in to get a quick shot, and looky, what Macron forgot. The video, which has gone viral, shows him quickly trying to hide it, and what looks to be a spoon under the German Chancellor. Of course, they're saying it's a napkin. Okay.
No, that wasn't a napkin. Are you kidding?
Okay,
That's what they're saying?
Yeah, they're saying it's a napkin, and he was embarrassed by this napkin being out there.
No,
so he quickly.
That's a little baggy.
It looks like it to me. I mean, it could be, it could be a sugar substitute for the tea that they were having.
Well,
but
that's what I thought.
Lot.
I thought they might say, a vitamin supplement or something like that.
Yes,
but not a napkin.
Exactly. I mean, you see how they're acting, and Zelensky evidently just left the room prior to that shot. So need I say more? But of course, they're shutting it down in France. So the blackout is on, and you can see the video all over social media. But come on, you see the quick move, 2 quick moves, and he's smiling, and like a little bit shocked. So we'll keep an eye on that one. FBI's Dan Bongino posting over the weekend that the DOJ is working hard as quickly as possible and doing their best as he defended FBI Director Kash Patel. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 52 in Westminster, 50 in Castle Rock, 54 in Denver. Jeff and Billy are ready for the week. Here they go. Blake Olsen, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast here in Denver on this early Monday. Just a few passing clouds this morning, temperatures in the mid-50s. Then for the rest of your Monday, mostly sunny with highs topping out around 85. Partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-50s. Then for Tuesday, mostly sunny. Daytime temperatures near 85, lows in the mid-50s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Text messages are already good this morning. Jason in Denver, it wasn't a napkin. It just happened to have Hunter Biden's phone number written on it. That was good, Jason. All right, I want to bring Blake back on this one because it was a wild weekend for the Rockies. 21-0 lost to the Padres. This made national news. This is Fox News. Colorado Rockies' abysmal start to the 2025 campaign hit a new low on Saturday as they fell to the San Diego Padres 21-0 at Coors Field, marking the team's worst shutout loss in franchise history. As the Padres poured it on, MLB fans couldn't believe what they were watching, and their voices were heard on social media. The on-field product has been atrocious all year, as their 6-33 record is by far the worst in the major league. but a football score was on the board, but at Coors Field, and the Rockies fans in the stands, who were vastly outnumbered by Padres supporters, were chanting for change. The Rockies are losing 19-0 at the bottom of the fifth. One X user posted, "The crowd is chanting, 'Sell the team! Sell the team!'" Well, then yesterday, Rockies posted this: "Our play so far this season, especially coming off the last 2 seasons, has been unacceptable. Our fans deserve better, and we are capable of better. While we all share responsibility in how this season has played out, these changes are necessary. We will use the remainder of the 2025 to improve where we can on the field and to evaluate all areas of our operation so we can properly turn the page into the next chapter of Rockies baseball. I want to thank Bud Black and Mike Redmond for their contribution to the organization across the 8 years. I appreciate their hard work and dedication and wish them nothing but the best going forward." That's Dick Mumford upon the firing of Bud Black yesterday. And I wanted to ask our resident sports dude, Blake Olsen, his thoughts on the Rockies and this change.
With the Rockies, it's kind of a different situation, Jeff, because fans are so great here, and they flood Coors Field despite the product that's on the field. Win or lose, they're going to show up because it's entertaining to not only just go to the ballpark. It's beautiful, and you people watch, and it's something to do during the summer. But until fans stop coming, and it sounds like that's kind of the case now, although they are competing with the Nuggets in the playoffs right now. Avalanche just finishing the season. School is not out yet. So, and Billy would probably know more about this, and you would too, as far as the attendance. I haven't even looked at it. But until fans stop going and demand that they have a competitive team on the field, the owners are gonna continue putting a less than mediocre product on the field. I mean, they're in business as long as they have the TV deals, and as long as they have the fans coming in. It's entertainment during the summertime. It's a filler between the Nuggets and the Avalanche and the Broncos. This is what's going to happen. But it sounds like they're starting to hear it, and this is good for the organization because they're going to do what the fans say, and the fans speak with their feet at the entrance.
So the capacity of Coors Field's 50,000. They're pulled in the other day against the Padres, 38,000. So there were some openings there.
I mean, so I hadn't checked it. That's a great crowd. Now, it's a lot of Padres fans, of course. But, oh, my goodness, 38,000. I'm like, okay, let's switch managers and see how we go and see what happens in June and July.
To Bill's point, it's like a glorified or very expensive food court at this point.
Yeah, that's all it is.
No, that's true. That's exactly right. No, he is correct.
There's no incentive for the Rockies to get better.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing. Absolutely. They get 24 to 30,000 a game. There literally is no incentive at all for them to invest more, to get more, to be more. Why? As long as they're making money, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and I have seen this in international soccer over and over and over again. That if you can stay in the middle of the table at the top league, there's no incentive for you to be any better than that. Yeah. None at all. And unfortunately, there's no disincentive to be very, very bad inside of our major sports, where there is in international soccer, because you get relegated.
You drop down.
Yeah, you get relegated. So there is an incentive to not suck, but there's no real incentive at a certain point to get phenomenally better.
You got to make a lot more money if you win a championship, though, right?
Oh yeah, but the idea is you also got to spend a lot more money in order to win the championship.
There.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's a gamble,
especially in baseball. And soccer's the same way, I would imagine.
But, absolutely.
I mean, it's astronomical what you have to pay in baseball.
So maybe we shouldn't complain. Maybe the dollar seats that they're offering right now, so you can take your kids and go spend a Saturday down there and just chill out.
The entire stadium should be $1. I mean, honestly, just first come, first serve. Every seat $1.
There's a lot of seats that are like that, so maybe we should just embrace it.
That's exactly what it should be. Yeah.
Because like the Broncos games are so expensive right now.
Oh yeah, they're really expensive. But
absolutely,
they're a different tradition. You've been around long enough,
Yeah.
Jeff, and so is Blake as well, to understand the Broncos operate in a different stratosphere than the Nuggets, the Rockies, and the Avalanche because the Broncos were the only game in town for so long.
Yep.
There's something about the Broncos. The Broncos will always run this town, regardless of how
right.
good or bad they are.
So Friday, I got to hang out with Bill Hanslick.
Hey, I saw the picture. That was fantastic.
Did you ever know Bill?
Yeah,
Hanslick, Blake?
Oh, yeah. We worked together for 11 years.
Dude, got to hang out with him.
Hans is great.
Dude,
man.
that
He's
guy
great.
is just a ball of energy. He just walks in the room and he's so happy to see everybody and just get into the game. And then we were sitting next to each other and he's doing the halftime analysis. And I'm like, I'm sitting next to Bill Hanslick while he does halftime analysis to his buddies that were sitting there. It was amazing.
The funny thing about Hans, you're right. He's a ball of energy. He always has a positive attitude.
Yes,
and he had he had a nickname for everyone, but his little nickname for me was not shake and bake, but shake and Blake. And so I'd walk into the studio and he'd go shake and Blake, shake and Blake, shake and Blake, get a little shake and Blake. He loved that. So Hans is awesome. Love his wife and his kids and his grandkids and
I was hanging out with
people.
the folks doing Gold Crown, so it was kind of this Gold Crown crew.
Gold Crown's doing a great job, and Hans is instrumental in that.
All right, I got to show you guys something. So Friday.
Oh yeah,
I went shooting with Tubbs.
Oh yeah,
and the DEA folks. Here's the here's the bad guy that didn't survive. So now you see, so here's me. Here's Tubbs.
Oh, that's great.
No, I'm kidding. But this is where we got to shoot with the what DEA gets to shoot against the bad guys.
Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
This is the target right there.
But it's a little awkward. I mean, there's no doubt it's a little awkward. And right now, we're looking at a weekend of pretty good news overall for Trump.
I don't know.
I don't know what that audio is. I'm killing Blake for a sec because that audio is coming from Blake at this point.
It's coming from Blake.
Okay,
So
I'm going to bring it back up.
I don't think it's.
Yeah, was that pack?
That sounds like
Yeah, it's coming through your
Stand-
slider,
with
but I don't know why it's coming through your slider, Blake.
Oh, interesting.
I don't
Morning. Kick that off. But yeah, that was a ton of fun to get to hang out with the
I
Tubbs
like that.
guys.
Now, who was that? Who was that of the photo?
I'm surprised not of
Jeff?
me.
So that that is the targets that the DEA uses.
Oh,
and
wow.
so here I'll show it again. This is what they train on. So we got to train with all the weapons the DEA gets to use and even the targets they get to shoot at.
Wow.
He's got a gun at the bottom there. And it was awesome.
So at that point, you were trying to shoot the gun out of his hand because that's proper procedure, right?
Well,
just
so
like in the cowboy movies.
at the beginning, they're like, Jeff, why don't you aim for his hat and see what you can get? And then they go,
Yeah.
all right, now instead of that, just aim in the middle of his body because I was hitting over here.
So those listening on radio, Jeff is holding up a huge photo of a white male with a jean jacket on. I have no idea who it is, but his target practice.
His target practice for the
and you
DEA.
did pretty well, though. Looks like you did pretty well.
Yeah, you did
So
real well.
they have these, the ARs have these red light lasers on them, and it doesn't project a laser, but the bullet will go wherever that laser is. It's amazing technology
That's
that they
so
have right
cool.
now. So, and then I asked them, do you feel outgunned, against the cartels? Like if you go down and face these cartels on the border and stuff, do they have bigger weapons and stuff like that? And they said, well, they may every once in a while get a bigger weapon, but when it comes to training and operations of that weapon, they can't match the DEA. These guys are out every single week.
That's awesome. Training.
I mean, they can hit it so hard versus some guy that they just handed an AR-15 to. It says, go try to take these guys on. So
yeah, just because the Nuggets hand you a jersey and the ball and step you on the court doesn't mean you're a basketball player. Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
it. Yeah, there's something different.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. So
where is that, in Larkspur? Or
we
where
were
you?
training in Highlands Ranch at the
Highlands Ranch?
shooting range down there, the law enforcement training range down there. But
Cool.
And I even got some video of Tubbs lighting it up.
I saw that.
Nice.
Impressive.
Yeah. So.
You guys lived out the dream, didn't you?
It was fun to hang out with the DA guys. They're doing great work, man. All right, thank you, Blake.
Okay. You bet.
Yeah, thanks.
So yesterday was one of those wild weather days where it was cool in the morning, then hot all day, and so your AC and furnace is all having to go back and forth and heat the house and cool the house, and ours broke last summer, and it resulted in a little bit of tension in the Hunt house. As I, growing up in Colorado, just never had AC on. Open the windows at night, close them during the day, turn the fans on, all that stuff. My wife grew up in the deserts of California, where it is coolest 85 degrees. So for her, the AC is a powerhouse that keeps the house cool. So we had to get a new system, and called a number. We talked to a bunch of different groups that came out, gave us bids, all that. We chose L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. They installed an absolutely fantastic system that works flawlessly. They nailed it. And they got it done in 1 day. 1 day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish, and they even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now, our home is finally comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we've got peace of mind. Listen to these deals I got going on right now. Free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioning installation. No emergency charges, $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great, and our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691, online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called them. That number again, 720-851-1691. So here's what I'd love to hear from our listeners. Give us a call if you'd like. Phone number is 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Bud Black's out at the Rockies. It's a change that you appreciate. Does it make you think the Rockies are going to turn it around a little bit, possibly get some wins there? Do you not mind? Look,
Did
it's
you
a
forget
nice...
we have a baseball team?
Right.
Did you forget they exist?
I mean, if $1 tickets, an afternoon at the ballpark with the kids, yeah, grab some food. Do you really even pay that close of attention to the game? Does it matter that much to you? Give us a call. Join the conversation. Text line again, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
5 rallies in a week. The only way you can. No apology.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, did you have a good Mother's Day?
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, what'd you guys do?
Kind of quiet. Did some yard work, as my wife always likes to. Went over to my mom's place to have brunch with her, which is good. She likes to show the kids off and stuff, as grandparents like to do. And they always do a nice spread. And it was a good Mother's Day because early in the morning, and again, we're going to dovetail off the sports thing. Early in the day, my Newcastle United Magpies beat Chelsea, and that is phenomenally important to us. We've got 2 games left, and this really helps us get into the Champions League. That's what we really, 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 really need. It did well. So we've got Arsenal next week, Everton the week after, last 2 games of the season. This one we needed because Chelsea was tied with us, and we needed the 3 points above them. And beat them, and I really appreciate Nicholas Jackson getting himself a red card at 35 minutes into the game, so they only had 10 men. Sure appreciate that, Nicholas. Thank you for the extra elbow. I love that one. And then got to watch the Nuggets later in the afternoon, and that was painful.
That was because they got up there towards the end.
Yeah. And
then lost it.
Yeah, and it's looking back, and again, I'm not a basketball analyst, but I spent a lot of time, I did play-by-play and color commentary for years at college. And it's the Nuggets dug themselves such a hole when you score 8 points in the first quarter. So every team in the NBA is going to go on a run. The problem is when the Nuggets went on their run, it was just to get even. And then when the Thunder got to go on a run, it was to, again, lengthen the gap between the two teams. And there were some just, I don't know, there's a shot selection. Okay, there's this thing we talk about in the NFL where you say, when the team is behind, they abandon the running game, they have to throw. And there becomes an offense when you're behind in basketball in the final 3 minutes that focuses on a three-pointer. And so if you can understand how to play defense against that, it works out really well. But you as the offensive team have got to hit the three-pointers in order to make it win and to make it work. And Denver missed 3 down the stretch. I mean, and not even just, no iron. I mean, just whoosh, nothing at all, just missed the entire basket. And that's nerves, especially on your home court, and a little bit of lack of preparation. And it just, and as soon as I saw them, the second one, I think it was the Westbrook. When Westbrook went long and went over the back, and he's on the corner. And so he goes and he shoots. He doesn't hit any iron, but he's pushing it long. And so he's shooting over the target. I went, this is over. This is pretty much over. Because if you can't hit those open threes, you're trading because they're going to look for 2s. And so you're trading buckets in ways you can't. So that was a disappointing one, especially after the win that was fantastic that you were on Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. There was a lot of,
win.
yeah. There was a lot of idea that if we could take 2 here, then I think we had a shot at really taking Oklahoma City. Now, because it's even, they have the advantage just based on home court. So it's a hill for the Nuggets. But again, Newcastle won. It was so exciting. We're going to be in the Champions League.
We had a great Mother's Day. Great to see my
do?
mom. Great to see my wife. My wife likes the very quiet morning, so it's breakfast in bed and the kids and all that stuff. And she was laughing. I guess there was a meme circulating of a mom waiting for the breakfast in bed. Meanwhile, downstairs, there's shouting and cursing and things on fire and all that stuff while the family tries to get that.
Oh, that's great.
That wasn't us. We were able to come together, but it was great. And then to get to see my mom and the whole family. It was awesome. So
that's nice.
Yeah,
that is wonderful.
Bill and I were talking yesterday. The Colorado Rockies sending Bud Black packing after just a terrible loss. We're the worst in Major League Baseball. The Padres shutting us out on Saturday.
It's the worst shutout home loss ever.
Fashion, to the point where it makes Fox News 21-0 lost to the Padres.
And it was the worst home shutout loss ever in the history of the Rockies. And again, hasn't been around a ton of time, not like some of the other clubs. But really? These are the records that we're breaking now? I'm not convinced that the Monforts want the team to be competitive. I'm not convinced that that is the goal. And I understand that, and I'm just going to refer back to my Newcastle Magpies. Our previous owner didn't want to be competitive. That was not his goal. Now, I will give him all the credit in the world for keeping the club financially stable. And I don't know what the Rockies' bank books look like because they don't show us, and that's okay. So I don't know how financially stable they are. But if they are at least operating in the black, okay, I can at least give you a little bit of grace on this one. A little bit, not a lot. And the only reason that I would say I would give you grace is because if you're operating in the black, it is better to sell. That is a much better asset if you're operating in the black than if you're operating the red. So that at least helps the financial situation, the value of the club. But I'm not convinced they want to win, and in part because in Major League Baseball, there's no punishment for losing. There's no punishment for sucking. You can be awful, and there's zero punishment. In fact, the only thing that you get is a shot at the really, really good kids coming out of college. And again, I like it's not a huge reward because they're hit and miss. We can all look at draft picks that were supposed to be huge in basketball, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball. NFL are the ones that pop into my mind. Everybody remembers, things like Trent Richardson. He was supposed to go number 1, went number 2. You can talk about Jamarcus Russell. You can talk about Ryan Leaf. There's a whole bunch of guys out there that you can talk about never living up to where they were drafted. But I'm not certain that the Rockies, it matters. And the weird part is when we go out there, what you want in the Major League draft is pitching. But we don't have any air,
right?
And so we
it's
don't
like
get the movement.
Worst state to pitch in.
Yeah, you've got to have someone that just has to. I don't know. Again, I'm not a baseball person, so I'm not going to critique what you need as far as pitchers. I understand what my grandfather told me and what he always talked about, but the ball's not going to dance like it does at sea level, so you can't have those type of pitchers. So what do? You almost have to have just flamethrowers. And just come at it and go as hard and as fast as you can, and just pick your place on the plate where you're going to get to. But I don't know. I'm just not convinced that the Rockies want to be competitive ever.
I don't think it really matters. Like to your point, there's no real loss. You can't drop down. So if they're turning a profit, just let this thing hum along.
Yeah.
38,000 people, nearly full capacity, and they're offering $1, $2 tickets. So maybe it's something we shouldn't complain about.
Yeah, and that's the idea is if there are 30,000 people showing up, why would you, if you were owning the club, would you change? I mean, would you, honestly? Well, I don't think there's any incentive at that point. As long as, you don't have the Yankees payroll, so does it matter? And this is kind of a weird place to play anyway.
By the way, do you see the video of Pope Leo at the White Sox games?
Yes.
They dug that stuff up.
Oh, yes. I saw that
don't even think they noticed they were filming him.
Oh, I bet not at all.
But he's not dressed like a cardinal.
No, and I bet what it is someone probably has run facial recognition is what I'm guessing.
Oh, good.
Is what I'm guessing. Someone has done that and found some of those highlights. Is probably what someone did, is just send it out there to see what they get. But it's fantastic. And the idea that, there are those people that are, I was sitting next to the Pope. I was sitting next to the Pope. Yeah.
There's a guy named Rob from Chicago who's the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. Rob from Chicago. Yes. Somewhere out there that that he was maybe teased as, he was called Bobby in 3rd grade, and now he's the Pope. It is fantastic. But yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that the Rockies, they want to be anything other than bottom dwellers, because I don't think that there is necessary incentive. Do you really want to go out there and try to compete with the Dodgers and the Padres? I mean, clubs that seriously want to be Major League Baseball teams? No. We have no desire in Colorado to be a Major League Baseball team.
Have you heard of this thing called the Savannah Bananas?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those
fantastic
videos?
Yes. I love the dude that pitches on stilts.
Yes.
Love that dude.
Did you ever watch the video on that guy?
Yeah. Yeah, he'd never done it before. But he said, yes, sir, I can.
His mom encouraged him to go down and apply because he had no job. He's working construction. And he had to separate himself out from everybody else down there. And so he mentioned he could walk on stilts. He hadn't since he was 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you pitch on stilts? He's like, yeah.
Sure, why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like the classic, job where, the offer's there. You just got to get there a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're going to be here this fall.
Oh, that'd be fun. That'd be nice.
Now, that will sell out capacity.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this sport morph, and I'm wondering where you think it'll go.
I don't know.
Because there's sell-out capacities everywhere they go right now.
I think there needs to be, I think baseball needs to find a little bit more of an entertainment factor. And there's another part where one of two things, either that or, and I hate to say this, but perhaps they may be the first ones to do away with umpires and live refereeing. Because in some ways, it can make the most sense inside of baseball, because throwing a pitch or a strike can be determined based on electronics. And they do it right now, and then they grade the umpires. And none of the umpires are at 100%. They're all at 90 plus, and some are down in the 80s. That's not good. If I'm going in there and I'm having balls and strikes and the dude's calling 80%, I'm not real happy about that when I know that the electronics can make it better. And there have been some stuff that I'm happy with and unhappy with inside of soccer. But soccer has implemented on the highest levels goal line technology. There's a chip inside the ball, and they have electric eyes that are on the goal line. So if the ball crosses the goal line, and it's different than in football. You don't have to just break the plane of the goal. The entire ball has to go over the entire goal line in order to count. So they can, within a millimeter, decide where that ball is. I don't understand why there aren't certain plays inside of baseball. That makes a heck of a lot of sense. It's harder in basketball. It's harder in football. But they've got a dude standing there, another guy standing a little bit away from him and throwing a ball at him. That's pretty easy to read electronically as far as balls or strikes. And so there are certain things I wish they would lean into. And I don't know, but I don't think you'd want me to get into some of the funnier. But some of the funnier aspects might be interesting to lean into Savannah Bananas. If you were allowed to do that with the Rockies and you were given like a weekend of where you could create some of those fun rules, what would you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I like about the Savannah Bananas are the alternative dance teams they have.
Oh,
they have the grandmas, right? Because at the Nuggets game on Friday, right, you have the girls out there that do the dance, the normal NBA dance teams. But then they had a bunch of overweight dudes.
Hey.
And the crowd went crazy.
Yeah, the average dancers. A buddy of mine is one of the dancers. Brian.
Is he one
buddy
of
mine. Yeah, buddy of mine is Brian.
There's some big boys on that team.
He's pushing 350. Brian's a big dude, and he does not. And he does not shy away from it. Yes, he's a big guy, dark hair. Yeah, and he can dance.
There's a big boy in the back there.
Oh yeah, and he's great, and he does, and he says he gets down, and he's committed to it, and he goes down. But that's wonderful, and I would love that alternative dance team. I love the idea that you're playing. Bring in, just for one reason, bring in a legend or a celebrity hitter, just for one bat, one inning, and then
like
each
a
team
Will
has
Ferrell
to.
Or Steve
each team gets
Carell
to whatever it is you get to pick, and you bring in someone local. And I don't care who it is, just for fun. I don't care if you take somebody out of the crowd. I don't care. They're just it's at least, and the only reason is because, and maybe if we were, and I'm using this in air quotes, a real baseball team, I would be more into tradition. Right now, we are a clown show, so why not lean into it? And I mean, again, oh well,
yeah. Well, speaking of that, I think the bananas will be here in August or
that'd be
something
cool.
like that. So that'll be fun. All right, want to talk to you about our friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, and reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state as pressure on the water system grows. It's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. Take it from a guy who lives on a well. It's all about water policy and taking care of our water. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families. And they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join the great people there. All right, we'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Jason in Denver's hot this morning. Bring in Shake and Blake to the Nuggets dance team.
Yeah. That'd be good. I'd pay to see him in glitter.
I would. the average
sequins,
the average dance guys at the Nuggets, those are fun.
Oh, they're
man.
fantastic, and it's such a good idea.
I was sitting there. I was a guest of Sean Duffy's at the game. And thank you to Sean for allowing me to head out there. But we were just remarking about how it really is entertainment. Right? There's sports, there's competitive, but I mean, you're wearing bracelets that light up. You got the whole. So the Savannah Bananas are tapping
music that goes all the entire time. Yeah.
I mean, there's some lady that stood on stacked chairs during the halftime.
Yeah.
But to that point, I think the sports are going that direction, where it's far more entertainment oriented. So Savannah Bananas are onto something.
Yeah, well, and part of the problem that we've been talking about, and it's been there for a while, is that, again, baseball is the U.S.'s favorite pastime, not necessarily sport. It's a difference. There's a different approach to baseball. And baseball is, in my opinion, more of a relaxed game in which you're sitting there and how it goes. I mean, they don't care how long it goes. There's no time frame. It doesn't matter. And so it's a different approach to the regimented sports that all of us, the rest of us watch a lot of times. So, and I do that because I'm not a baseball fan. I do that, and part of it is because I find it to be very slow. Yes, this is coming from a person that watches soccer. And I know every one of you say there's just a bunch of people running around and kicking the ball. Yeah, but we're done in 2 hours. Doesn't matter. Don't care. And that includes 15 minutes for halftime. Yeah. So we are, signed, sealed, delivered, put a punch in it, done 2 hours later. So I understand the idea of not thinking anything goes on, but at least we don't let it go on forever. So I'll take the knocks about not anything happening, but at least we put a time limit on it. We don't just sit around and do nothing for hours.
Isn't cricket a game that goes on forever?
Yeah, it can go on forever. And that's a weird one. I've tried to watch some cricket. I had an Englishman that I worked with for a while at a restaurant, and he tried to get me into it. And so I understand it. I find it boring. I find it very boring. But I get it.
Speaking of entertainment, we're going to bring you some entertainment this morning with some You Choose the News.
Yes, it is that time of the morning where we get to make questionable decisions. It's time for You Choose the News. Yes, I've spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs for stories about us stupid humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why in the world would we waste valuable airtime doing this on 710 KNUS? Because those that are in charge have no idea we are this irresponsible. Yes, so shh. Don't tell them. They don't wake up for about another 10 minutes. We've got a little bit of time to be a little silly. Okay, Blake Olsen joins us from the news department. Jeff Hunt is in the studio. And here are your headlines, gentlemen. Headline number 1, did not see this coming. Headline number 2, Nicholas Flamel was right. Headline number 3, they're not playing games. And headline number 4, it's pronounced Shaw. Mr. Hunt.
It's pronounced Shaw.
Yes, it is pronounced Shaw. The interim administration of Afghanistan has officially banned the game of Shah. If you're not familiar, that's because you don't know what we call it now. We call it chess. The original name of chess was Shah. It's based on the king. Now, the official Ministry of Sports in Afghanistan has confirmed they are suspending all chess activities as of this weekend, and in further notice, explaining it wasn't until suitable answers are found regarding the religious concerns about the sport. So it's going to be remaining prohibited for a while. The Ministry of Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice has taken further steps and dissolved the Afghan Chess Federation and labeling the game a harem. Which actually makes me want to go play chess a little bit more.
So glad we spent $8 billion there. Yeah. Man, what an investment.
Yeah, and the weird part is that chess was actually really, really, really popular at one point in the Islamic world. In fact, that's part of where it comes from. So the weird thing is they're now something that they're responsible in part for creating. They're now eschewing as being, I don't know. I don't get it. But
logic is not.
Yeah, I don't understand the chess thing. I don't get the chess part. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't. Okay, Blake Olsen, sir, your choice. Did not see this coming. Nicholas Flamel was right, or they're not playing games.
Nicholas Flamel was right.
Yes, Nicholas Flamel was right. If you don't recognize that name, he was one of the famous alchemists in the past. And fulfilling dreams of Nicholas Flamel, physicists have observed the transformation of lead into gold. Yes, we can now turn lead into gold, but just little tiny pieces. tiny. See, what happened is it happens through nuclear physics. At the Large Hadron Collider, the world's most powerful particle accelerator, they basically have been smashing stuff into each other and sometimes turns into gold. Now, lead turning into gold has been around for hundreds of years. The metals are similar in density, but science said they're not chemically interchangeable. But gold can be produced in microscopic amounts at the heart of the Large Hadron Collider. Now, what happens is basically they're smashing stuff into each other, and in cases in which there is a near miss, one of the side effects is the creation of microscopic gold. Now, you can't do it enough times to make even gold, Cougarand. Doesn't happen like that. But the interesting part is that when these particles, when the atoms are coming near each other, if they smash into each other, they're creating the energy. But if it's a near miss, if they miss at the right angle, they're microscopically creating gold.
Wow.
Kind of cool. Yeah.
Pretty
but again,
cool.
can't do it
Love
in any large enough amounts for us to do anything with it. So who cares?
Oh,
Alrighty.
well.
Yeah. Jeff Hunt, final choice this morning, sir. Did not see this coming, or they're playing games.
Playing games.
Yes, they are playing games. In a surprise twist of the conflict between India and Pakistan, the official Twitter account of the government of Pakistan is posting military footage. They are trying to show India they are not playing around. Well, it certainly would help if they didn't use footage from video games, because that's a little embarrassing. Yes, the Pakistani government, on their official Twitter account, recently released a propaganda footage of warfare. They're not taking any prisoners. But it was from a video game simulation, a very popular military simulation known as Arma 3, rather than real combat footage. Yes, they thought they were taking it seriously and shooting at India's planes, and no, they weren't. It was a video game at all. The tweet has sparked widespread ridicule on social media, many questioning how a government account could mistake a video game for authentic military footage by accident, or is this on purpose? As of now, the post does remain live, and there is no official clarification from the Pakistani government. Now, people that are fans of military simulations would recognize Arma 3 immediately. It was developed as a military simulation game known for its high-fidelity graphics and extensive modeling capabilities. So what it does is you war game things. What would happen if this group of fighters or this group went in against this group? That idea. You guys have seen on the internet recently, they had the whole idea of, could 100 men beat a gorilla? Same type of thing. Right. That's what this does. So that's what they're able to do, but it's a much more serious type of an idea. So that's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Yeah. So they're not even using real footage to show how badassery they are. Okay, and final vote this morning, gentlemen. So could 100 dudes beat a gorilla? Blake, what do you think?
I would say no.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yes, 100%.
Barehanded?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, is the weird part is there without parameters. We don't know who these 100 people are.
Yeah, right.
And that's
of
the thing.
Is
so
you could always
you got
qualify
to figure out. Yeah, you got to figure out who these 100 people are. But 100 average dudes, I just think that if we're approaching it like if we were approaching it like the average person, or if we were doing it like the old kung fu fights where it's 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, we're screwed as humans.
Yeah, not a chance.
If it's groups, Although I am telling you, the first 35, y'all are dead.
Well,
Sorry about that.
Have you ever seen those bees attack like a giant hornet that comes in?
Yeah.
And they pile on top of it, and they basically overheat it to death.
Yeah, exactly. And ants will do the same thing. And so that's basically what we'd have to do. Yeah.
Someone would have to poke the gorilla's eyes out. Someone.
I nominate Blake and Shake.
Blake and Shake.
Other way around.
All right. Britta Horn's joining us next. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olsen, we have the chairwoman, Britta Horn, is going to be joining us. So we're going to ask her about how things are going. I think she's, close to maybe 40, 50 days into her leadership here. How is she taking the Colorado Republican Party in a new direction? What does she want to emphasize? All that stuff. So it's going to be an important conversation. A lot of times Bill and I talk about the news. Sometimes we make the news. And that conversation with the chairwoman might be news making. You're not going to want to miss it. Now is time for news and comment with Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen, news and comment.
Good morning, 56 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the president headed to the Middle East today for a 4-day trip. The White House says DJT is going to reaffirm his commitment for a free and prosperous region. He also announced over the weekend that the last American hostage being held in Gaza, 21-year-old Eden Alexander, is being released and is coming home to his family. He's been held hostage, of course, since October of 2023. Russian President Putin suggesting that talks about the Ukraine war could begin next week. U.S. and China agree to slash tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with the big news over the weekend, and DJT holding a big press conference this hour at the White House. America and China working together following weekend talks in Switzerland. Bessent said the two have agreed to pause their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, with both sides lowering rates by 115%.
This is a pause down to 10%. The April 2nd level for China is 34%. So we will be working to see where their final reciprocal number ends up. And the negotiations are a combination of tariffs, non-tariff trade barriers, currency manipulation, and subsidies of labor and capital.
DJT will be signing one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%. 47 says this will bring fairness to America. The U.S. will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. A Denver man is facing charges in Larimer County for a deadly shooting. 49-year-old Jennifer James died on April 28th after bullets were fired from outside her home. Investigators used surveillance footage and license plate readers to track down 20-year-old Ebenezer Worku, who had no connection to the victim in the shooting. He reportedly told investigators that he fired the gun accidentally because he wasn't familiar with the gun. He's been charged with first-degree murder. The Rockies fired manager Bud Black and bench coach Mike Redmond. Colorado suffered their worst shutout in franchise history over the weekend, 21-0. Third base coach Warren Schaefer will be the interim manager for the remainder of the season. They beat the Padres 9-3 on Sunday, so things looking up. The Nuggets lose steam and defeated by the Thunder in Game 4 of their series. It's tied at 2 games apiece and heads back to Oklahoma City tomorrow night. French media, the state media, by the way, shutting down social media rumors that French President Macron was caught with a bag of cocaine during a train trip in Ukraine. He's in this conference room on the train. You could see it with the Chancellor of Germany and UK's Keir Starmer. And they let the media enter to get a PR shot. And, looky, Macron forgot what was in front of him. The video which has gone viral, shows him quickly trying to hide it and what looks to be a spoon under the German chancellor. Of course, they're saying that it is a napkin that he's trying to hide so quickly and abruptly. There's no evidence. And so he says that they're
drug test him.
Yeah, drug test him. And that's what DJT has said for past 2 years, I think.
Really?
Talking about world leaders need to have drug tests. I agree. If they have their hands on the button, they talk about DJT being crazy.
Is he really called for drug testing against these guys?
Oh, I've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard
that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some performance enhancing taking place there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just look at you got to see the video. I mean, I know you probably have. But
the one.
Everyone needs to.
It's not a napkin. Come on.
Okay. See, and I'm like, what the heck? And what's that little thin spoon? It looks. I don't know what it is, but it's not like we talked about last hour. I doubt it's sweetener to the tea that they were having.
Yeah, got a question though on this though, and it's the idea being, let's just for the conversation, assume that Macron is doing the nose candy.
Yeah.
Do you bring it to a meeting with the leader of England and Germany? I mean, is that the table you put it on? And that's the only thing.
Unless they're all doing it together.
They're all doing it, and Zelensky just left. He probably brought it in for him.
Again, is this, if you were, again, I'm just kind of walking through this idea of, okay, you're the leader of France and you have a cocaine habit. Are you going to bring your stash and put it on the table with the leader of Germany, the leader of England, and the leader of Ukraine, and you all are going to have a cocaine party while you're traveling there, and then afterwards you're going to invite the press in? For me, again, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. However, if I'm the leader of a nation and I have a cocaine habit, those aren't the choices I'm making.
Dude,
that's all I'm saying.
I've tried to figure out how these guys have this capacity, because I work a 4-hour job, right? And then I've got kids. I'm exhausted at the end of the night. How these guys manage a country 20 hours a day for years and years and years. Not to say that they should be doing coke, but I'm trying to understand how they have the capacity when I work a 4-hour job and can barely pull it together with 4 kids in the house without collapsing at 7 o'clock at night.
Oh, I get it. And again, I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm just questioning the choices for here, because again, if the dude in England and the dude in Germany, and even Zelensky, if they partake, okay, that's one level. But those are leaders of other nations. Do you want them to have that card against you? And that's the thing that I would look at is if I was a leader of France, the last thing I would want is that the leader of any other nation knows about my Coke Jones, because they're going to use that as leverage at some point or another.
It's all just one big pedophile Coke cabal.
Yes.
And
yes.
That's why I got to go to that pizza joint in Jersey. Isn't that the thing there? Because that's a basement, and that's the thing we have to do.
I think Billy answered his own question right there. No doubt.
Yeah, but again, would you involve the other leaders? That's the thing.
Because the EU, they're all in it together, as Jeff said. They're all probably coke addicts.
Oh, they can be. They can, and that's fine. But the issue is, doesn't that then give you the leverage against the other guy?
Yes.
That's the part. And that thing is, why would you do that? That's what I can't figure out. Why would you give the leader of another country the leverage over you that you're doing illegal drugs?
All three of them have opened up their borders. They've ruined their countries. They don't care about their countries. All they care about is their police state and new world order. In my opinion, they don't care about their individual nations. I
can take that. I can take that or leave that, but I don't think that's necessarily germane to the discussion, because whether or not they all believe that or don't believe that, the issue being, why would you give the leader of another nation a card to hold over you for whatever reason that you do illegal drugs? That's a weird one.
Okay.
To give someone of another country. It's a weird one, even if they're doing it with you, because they could always create plausible deniability.
Oh, I agree.
That's the thing for me, is that I can't see that if I'm the leader of a nation and I've got a Coke Jones or whatever the heck else it is, I'm not doing the stuff with leaders of other countries, only because that can be used as blackmail behind the scenes. That's the only reason. That's it.
No, I hear you make a great point, and I would say the most simple answer to that question to me is because you're on drugs.
That's funny.
52 in Brighton, 50 in Parker, 54 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. I want a president who just drinks Diet Coke. That's all. No drugs, no alcohol. I love it. Blake Olsen, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. In a second, we're going to have be joined by Britta Horn, chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. I want to talk to you first about our friends over at Art of Granite. Are you tired of your outdated kitchen or bathroom, dreaming of sleek granite, luxurious marble, or the modern look of quartz? At the Art of Granite, they believe your home is a canvas. Owner and master craftsman Mitch Floria personally collaborates with each client, ensuring every detail is perfectly executed, from small vanities to complete kitchen overhauls. They do it all, and the best part, Mitch cuts out the middleman. He sources premium granite, marble, and quartz directly from his Denver West warehouse, offering you wholesale prices. And right now, an incredible offer exclusively for KNUS listeners. Mention KNUS and get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Listen to that again. All you got to do, mention KNUS and you get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Visit their stunning showroom in Denver West or go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Mention KNUS for those exclusive savings. All right. She's the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party, joining to give us an update. Britta Horn, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here.
All right. So how many days? Is it 40, 50, 60 days? Have you been counting?
I would be 42.
42 days, chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. So are you settling in? Give us an update. How are things going?
Okay. I think that, we are kind of settling in. We're finding our mojo. What do you want to say? Our cadence. So, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. I think it's 24/7 for that part. Like we were still all working yesterday, even after we did all our Mother's Day celebrations. There's just, a lot, like I said, of the way we're changing and not using one, Greenwood Village office. It's already being pulled apart and piles made up, and starting to decide where we're putting everything and going to different regional offices. So we have one in Denver. We're working on that one and the final stages of that. It's going to be really close to the Capitol for legislators and for, I think, everybody, easier in and out to chat with everybody and have conversations. We're going to have one down in Colorado Springs. Over the weekend, one popped up over in Montezuma County. They want to do something. We're working on one in Grand Junction, and going back up north, we have a team of people working with some of the counties to find something on I-25, maybe around Meade or Johnstown, to get closer to Boulder so we can start knocking doors, making phone calls, making friends, and getting some Republicans elected.
That's Britta Horn. She's the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. I think there's, a number of things that you're probably laser locked on, right? Obviously, the elections coming this fall, primarily around school board, right? I don't think we'll have any state house or Senate. These off-year elections are kind of geared more towards maybe city council or school board races. Tell us about how you're gearing up for that.
Well, talking to a lot of people, like I said, over the weekend we were down in Hotchkiss, and actually we're finding in Delta County and Peonia, I'm sure I'm saying it right, we're finding school board candidates. So you're absolutely right. I think laser focus on it's the way to go to kind of flush out how we're going to do our plan and how we're going to have field officers in all those regional offices and how that's going to look and how it's going to look, because it's going to be different in every community. But in terms of just still getting metrics, just numbers and just finding voters and getting people to vote and getting those messages. And I think it's a really good way to get our team working together in one direction towards those elections. Like you said, school board. I think there's some electric board. I think there's there might be some fire boards. And let's find the Republicans. Let's get them out. Let's bring back balance to the state.
Britta, can you tell us how fundraising's been the last 42 days? You get elected, oftentimes there's a little bump as people get excited about a new chairperson. How's it going financially for the state party?
It's going really well. We have a lot of people that are just like you said, they were just waiting. They were just waiting for change, and they promised, we get in and they'll definitely be a part of it. So we're seeing a lot of money coming in. We're seeing a lot of maxed out donations. We will be having a Capital Club. We'll be putting that out hopefully this week. I know the email went out, but we'll be doing it, I believe, the 29th. I have to look at my calendar. It's a Thursday, right after Lincoln Club Wednesday. And then we'll be, that helps a lot. It just reaches out to a lot of people that want to hear, just like we're hearing now and talking about, and they want to be a part of it, and they want to make sure we're successful. So it's going very well.
Yeah, tell folks what the Capital Club is. That's a great event for folks to get connected with you.
It's just a group that we're able to talk about all the things that are going on. This one in particular, we're going to bring a lot of legislators in, and they're going to be talking about what happened at the legislature for the last 120 days. I think everybody knows that, but I think we need to know about all the details, all the behind the curtain kind of pieces. They're going to be really willing to share with us. And then what do we need to do to help them moving forward? Because we have another year of this before we start going into those elections.
The Capital Club's a bi-monthly luncheon series that you can join, and it's only $50 a month. It's not crazy, but it allows you to connect and hear directly from the chairperson, like Britta Horn, or from different speakers that they bring in. I've been a member of the Capital Club in years past. It's a really great time to have lunch and get a chance to hear directly from Republican leaders. Britta, we do have some phone calls coming in. Are you okay to take some calls?
Absolutely.
All right. Brian Arvada. Good morning, Brian. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show with Britta Horn.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My question to Britta is, how are you going to manage keeping the staunch Trump supporters, not alienating people like me? I'm unaffiliated, but I'm a staunch Trump supporter. And I think the leadership before Dave Williams, they did that. They alienated the staunch Trump supporters, and they lost because of it big time. Like Dave Williams or not, he did make gains in Colorado better than the last leadership. How do you plan to balance that and not lose people like me?
Okay, so I'm not sure. You'll have to share with me the gains that you're speaking of. We're seeing the past, and we see everybody doing things in different ways. So going forward, we're going to continue to just work with talking, directly to you. It's going to have a different message than maybe the 250,000 Republicans that didn't vote last November. Or, more like you said, the independents like yourself, you're one of 300,000 that we have to answer to, and we have to find more. There's a gap still. We still have to find 500,000 more somethings to help us win elections. So it's definitely doing that. They call it block and tackle in the election world, and you're just blocking and tackling, just doing the work, the ground pounding, knocking doors, and really just getting some metrics showing that we are moving the needle and talking to people and building that community in all those areas. So I'm sure you'll be seeing something close to you in the Arvada area.
And that will include the staunch Trump supporters, because you can't win without us, and you can't win without the majority of the unaffiliated. So that's where the Republicans have always lost in Colorado, is they try to court the unaffiliated, they lose their staunch base supporters, or they just cater to the base supporters and they lose the unaffiliated. No one's been able to balance that. No one's been able to balance that since Bill Owens.
I believe it's going to be that bigger tent, because I think that's what you're talking about, because there's all different types of Republicans and all different types of conservatives. And I think we just open up that tent, like I said, and make it big enough for everybody to feel welcome in. And then we're going to have to discuss and have messaging that resonate to those people. Absolutely.
And Colorado's this kind of unique state in the sense that you have these Bernie Sanders supporters that love him. I mean, 30,000 people turned out for Bernie Sanders down at Civic Center Park. The state's not doing that well. And so under Jared Polis, under Democrat leadership at the Capitol, things are getting worse and worse and worse, but they seem to somehow want to believe that if we just get more and more progressive and put our support behind the guy that's flying around on private jets while complaining about oligarchs, that somehow we're going to turn the state around. Britta, how do you speak to voters out there that are frustrated with the direction of the state, but don't seem to blame Democrats yet? I don't understand it. Give me your thoughts.
It is a really unique situation. So you're right. So the messaging, I'm really hoping to package for all candidates, even this year, 25 and definitely 26, that we all speak the same language and talk about that and spotlight all those. The legislators are doing a great job spotlighting them. And it's like, how do we get it to resonate? Like you say, they're unhappy, but they vote D. So what are we missing that we're saying, hey, this is why we're here. We're here because of this one party rule in our state, and it's been for a couple of years. There was a gentleman that stopped by the office last week when we were packing up, and he was saying how he came from, I believe, Oregon, and he was saying we had to come back because Oregon's so bad because it's just one party rule, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, you're standing here, in Greenwood Village. We're seeing the same thing here. And he goes, oh, it's not nearly as bad. So we have to paint that message and say, look, we can't go down this path anymore. We're done. We're tired. We saw, at with that one bill, 1312, what was it? Over 700 parents showed up to speak. And then also we were online and trying to, speak against that bill. And we got cut off because the time shortening of it all. But it's just like, we're finally seeing, people put it, like I said, walking towards the Capitol saying, no, we're not going to do this anymore. I think we're seeing it change. This is ours to win.
Brian from Arvada, I appreciate the call. We're talking with Britta Horn. Britta's the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Now, we saw in Pennsylvania that if you just get out there and do the groundwork, you go out and you register people to vote, you can turn a state a certain direction. What is your plan for the Colorado Republican Party to do that groundwork? It's not fancy. It doesn't get the media's attention, but it's that day-to-day voter registration, connecting with voters and helping increase the number of registered Republicans. Tell us about your plan.
Oh, I think that's that plan we were talking about. We have regional field directors. We're going to put our money not into administration, but put it into these regional offices with regional field directors, with field directors themselves, and putting, like you said, that it's not flashy, it's not sexy, but it needs done. It's just, just building that community in all those areas and finding all those groups that have, if you've noticed, you've been around here for a while, Jeff, and I've been here since 1989, so 30 plus years, oh my. And there's nobody doing, like, all these silos, and nobody's talking to each other. There's no connection, all these different groups, and everybody's starting another different group and another different group. And I talked to another different group. It's like, how do we work together? How do we work parallel, find the 80% that we all get along with, and start working together? So having those going on in those regional offices is the plan. That's going to be the plan, is just definitely out doing door knocking, out making community, out making phone calls. Come on in for pizza parties. Start coming in for coffee. Just let's start building that so people can find a place to have those conversations. Because just even last night, somebody text me on, it was over on X, and saying, hey, how do I get involved with my county party? I'm like, absolutely. What county do you live in? Let's go find the people and plug you in.
That's Britta Horn, Colorado GOP Chairwoman, joining Jeff and Bill live. I kind of want to dovetail a little bit off of that and maybe go a little bit larger view. Currently, based on voter registration in Colorado, Republicans are third tail Charlie. You've got the Democrats in second and the unaffiliateds in first. So, Britta, my question is, how do you persuade those other large group of voters, possibly some disaffected or just angry Democrats, or a lot of those want-away Republicans that are in the unaffiliated, to come back home or at least listen to what you say? One of the problems I think you have is if you turn out every registered Republican voter in the state, you can still lose races. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you expand the potential voters?
Well, exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. When you're 23, 24% of the whole state, you can't win. You're absolutely right. So we have to bridge that gap and find those other places to talk about and have messaging about. Like we were just saying about the independent voters, 300,000 of them are lean, right. So we just need to have that conversation about all those pieces we just talked about before, how bad the state has gone and what we need to do to get it back to, back to balance and back to central, that we can't do all these progressive ideas and what's going on in schools and what's going on in, taxes and Tabor. At least we got Tabor beat down, but, they're talking already about having a special session. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is we have to target and talk to them and be there and just show that we are this group and we are thinking this way, and finding more of them and opening up that area, that tent. Like I said, we have to be able to get along inside the tent and then just turn around and do a 180 and start working outside the tent and start fighting back on the issues about the other party, the Democrats, and people who think that they're all doing it right, like you guys have seen and done all your videos, but saying, no, this is not progressive. This is making our state worse. It's turning around, stop fighting each other, and working outside the tent.
That's Britta Horn. She's the chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Britta, I think someone who's modeled that pretty well has been Rose Puglisi. If you remember, just a few years ago, division within House Republicans under Rose's leadership, and her perspective, which I admire, is, look, we have different communities in Colorado, and the Colorado Republican Party is going to reflect those communities. So you have everyone from Scott Bottoms, who is, about as conservative as you can get and willing to go to battle, to more moderate members that represent more moderate districts. And we got to be comfortable as Republicans working together. We may have some differences, but, they're going to reflect their constituencies. And at the end of the day, it's a math problem. If there's more of us in the House, then we get to have more influence. And I appreciate Rose's perspective. Do you want to talk briefly about that?
Oh, absolutely. She's definitely a role model for that. And so are other legislators. But you're right. Rose showed that you can stay calm, have all these different versions of what we think about conservatism and how many different levels there are. But also they go straight and they vote straight on certain bills that are just absolutely, fighting back the Democrats. And why wouldn't we use that? It's a very successful model. Why wouldn't we use that out around the state and in one of the more rural areas or the more city areas, and just saying, no, there's options. We need to put a stop to this. And I think we're starting to see it. And I know that that's going to be the resonating voice, that you're all welcome. You're all welcome to join, and let's find what we can do together and work on together to have Colorado not only an affordable place to live, but somewhere where we enjoy it, where to live.
That's Britta Horn, chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Get involved with Republicans by going to cologop.org, cologop.org. If you remember, I worked for the state party at one time. I saw how demanding it is to be a state chairperson. Britta Horn's got a very demanding job ahead of her. And at the end of the day, it's about stopping the radical progressives, destroying the state. So get behind and support her. Go to cologop.org. Britta, thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciate you guys. Talk to you next time.
See ya. All right, let's talk alarm detection systems. Because the Democrats are in control of this state and crime is running rampant, you need a good alarm detection system to protect your business. Reliability isn't optional when business security is on the line. It's essential. Businesses trust alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could save using one source for cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request, because downtime isn't an option. dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your businesses stay protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools, their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com and schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of front range in Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. Well, Bill, I think Britta's going to have her first test this fall.
Yes, she will.
With these school board elections. Yeah. So she's, like we said with Dave Williams, we're going to judge them on wins and losses.
Yeah, and as some of the texters have pointed out, it's going to be a delicate balance between connecting with the MAGA supporters and other GOP supporters that have rejected MAGA and some of the wantaways that are in the unaffiliateds. So it's difficult because you don't have one clear message that she can send out. She has to speak and listen to each different group and then persuade them all to work together. So we don't know if she's going to be like a cattle rustler and be able to make sure all the cows are going the same direction, or does she become a cat rustler and she's going to wander around and try to get cats to go in the same direction? We don't know.
Well, there's lots of different theories on how to do that. Someone was telling me the other day, John Maxwell said, well, if you're trying to get people to get in line, just shoot one of them and the rest will get in line.
That could be effective.
That's one of the ways to do it.
Yes, that is.
Or can you win them over and encourage them all to use their gifts and talents in particular areas? It's not an easy job, but bottom line, it's about wins. If you can get wins, people start to coalesce around you because it's like Rockies, like everything else we talked about today.
Exactly. All of our critique of the Rockies would evaporate if they had won more than a handful of games. If they were competitive in any way, shape, or form, winning papers over a heck of a lot of warts. It really does.
All right, we got George Brauchler coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. We love you, George.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A certain district attorney here in Colorado drawing national attention. New York Post, Republican DA bucks blue states' broken sentencing with tough on crime approach. Fox News also reporting on this. A tough on crime Republican district attorney is using his years of prosecuting some of the most infamous cases in Colorado to crack down on crime across the blue state. In January, George Brauchler became the first ever district attorney for Colorado's 23rd Judicial District. Joins us now. Good morning, Jorge.
Yeah, good morning.
Man, thanks for having me on. Thank you, guys.
Well, great national coverage about your leadership. I mean, this is, and what I appreciate is they're exploring how you're trying to put the bad guys away in a state that's not friendly to that idea, essentially.
It was unexpected. I mean, what started as a conversation about a DUI trial that we prosecuted as murder, which is rare, but we got aggressive with it for a whole bunch of reasons, turned into a broader discussion as the interviewers started asking about, well, wait, what else are you guys doing out there, and how are you doing that out in a blue metro area? And it turned into this story. I didn't expect it to get the coverage it did, but I'm very happy for our jurisdiction down here. And my hope is it has an impact on the other DAs, regardless of party, into what the public is sort of expecting these days.
George, I was talking to some other law enforcement guys, and they were lamenting how challenging it is in this state, especially in the city of Denver, where you'll do all this work, you'll bust a bad guy, you'll do it right, and then with this turnaround bail operation, they're out. And you're just like, it's just this big battle against these progressive forces in the state that want bad guys back out on the streets. You're finding ways to combat that. Talk about that.
I think this begins before you take office, and there has to be a real concerted effort with your judiciary. Because at the end of the day, they have such broad discretion about who to give bond to and what bond to. Don't have them at least aware of, your goals with this. I think you set yourself up for failure. I think the other thing is, and in no way should this be viewed as a threat to the judiciary, but a reality of our governmental system, we need to pay much more attention to what we do on the ballot with judges than we probably ever have. I think we've taken for granted for years that judges reflect our community's interests. Now, in the 23rd, I think that's almost entirely correct. But if you're up in Denver and you're longing for the days of accountability after criminal conduct, you have to start asking yourself, who is the governor putting on the bench here that is impacting these cases the way you described? I think we need to have a much more concerted effort at evaluating who's on the ballot as a judge and whether or not they should be retained.
That's George Brauchler. Now, George, one of the critiques I've heard about judges, if you vote them out, well, Jared Polis is going to put progressive judges right back in there. So can you really make a difference by voting these judges out? Your thoughts?
Yeah, that is such an insightful point. And I've had this conversation with our friends who you've heard of who've said, hey, I vote no every single time on the judges. I just find that to be largely an ignorant vote because of what you said. The issue here is, and it's funny we're in this place, funny, sad, and that is it's sometimes not a question of can we do better, but can we do worse? And if you can't do worse, then get rid of the judges that you have, and then you end up rolling the dice and seeing what a Governor Bennett or a Governor Polis ends up doing.
Now, George Brauchler, I got a question for you on that one, the idea of the judge retention. You're listening to George Brauchler, former host here on KNUS, and now the DA at Judicial District 23. So how can we get the individual voter concerned about judge retention? And what I mean is the vast majority of voters like, I'm never going to see that judge. And if I do, I've done something wrong. How do we get them convinced that the retention of judges is one of the more important issues on the ballot?
I think we need to have more coverage like we saw with super investigative reporter Dave Magoya out of the Gazette when he and his team tackled the overturn rate, the error rate for judges statewide, because none of that information is easily accessible, which is crazy for voters, and found the top 10 to 25 most overturned judges. things like that and more exposure about them. When you read stories about cases and how they resolved in court, big sentences, little sentences, convictions, acquittals, every once in a while, maybe on paragraph 812, you'll see the name of a judge in there. But we don't do a good job of highlighting what they do on a day-to-day basis. For instance, there's a judge in Denver that granted a bond for a juvenile murder. I think it was an 18-year-old murder. Granted him bond. He went out and ended up killing some people. That was just in the story last week. That person should be famous. And if the DAs aren't helping to do it, and I understand the risk is if you go for the king, you got to take out the king, because otherwise you're going to get stuck with 6 years of bad rulings. But there's got to be more focus on that. We just don't do it.
George Brauchler, District Attorney, Judicial District 23. Now, the story in Fox News and New York Post about you centers around a heartbreaking case of a father that stops to get gas with his family. Drunk driver plows into him. You push for an aggressive prosecution. Why? Talk about the details around the story.
Yeah, so Matt Anderson is a fast-rising active duty lieutenant colonel in the Air Force who's a test pilot. I mean, this guy's hot. And he and his family go to the last day of the Douglas County Fair back in last August. And on their way out, Mom says, can we stop here at the 7-Eleven to get the kids popsicles? I mean, so you can imagine the event, right? Like, it's right before school starts. It's just the best time of life. You know what I mean? They got 4 kids in the car, 11, 8, 4, and 20 months. Matt pulls up to the gas pump, starts filling up. Mom's taking off across the parking lot to get to the 7-Eleven, and lo and behold, death shows up in the form of a 2017 lifted Chevy Silverado that a guy who's rocking a .208 blood alcohol level had drank himself out of all of his liquor in his house, 2 Bud Lights and a pint of Fireball whiskey on his way to the liquor store. And then he shoots across 5 lanes of traffic on westbound Plum Creek, goes up over a curb, and when he comes down, he hits the accelerator hard enough to go about 45 miles an hour into the side of that car. It crushes the father. He has his leg torn off just above the ankle. He gets knocked through the air about 15 feet, massive head injuries, all in front of the kids. Kids suffer injuries, one pretty serious, but he's healed up. 2 others, a lot of cuts and scrapes and bruising. And then the 20-month-old, miraculously, God stepped in and said, no, thank you, and no injuries. Mom watched the whole thing happen. This guy, of course, has 2 prior DUIs. So Colorado's law is ridiculously weak. It says for vehicular homicide, the max sentence you can receive is 4 to 12 years in the Department of Corrections, but it's not crime of violence, not probation. It's not mandatory prison. It's probation eligible, which means even if you ran over someone and killed them as a drunk and you got the max out sentence, you would likely be paroled out of prison in less than 4 years. Now, if you killed 4 people, 10 people, 100 people driving drunk, that never becomes mandatory prison. And so looking at this case, it simply did not make sense from a justice standpoint to allow this guy to get out in less than 4 years. And by the way, we have recorded calls of him in jail saying that to someone, saying, I'll be out in a few years. Well, no, thank you. So we pursued extreme indifference murder, a charge, by the way, the legislature tried to get rid of this year or to downgrade. And the jury agreed with us about 3.5 hours after a week-long trial, and they said, yeah, this is murder and attempted murder. So he's going to go to prison here the day before Independence Day for life plus up to 230 years in the Department of Corrections.
Wow. I mean, I want to talk about hold on. You said life plus 236 years versus 6 years?
No, versus less than 4 practical years in prison. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well done.
Oh my goodness. And George, that's because of your leadership in the district attorney's office?
Well, listen, if I take credit for this, I'm cheating a whole bunch of good, hardworking people that were here before I am from all the decisions they made trying to get this case ready for trial. In fact, I did the case with a great prosecutor named Nate Marsh that we had. Great staff put this together. Let me tell you 2 other really cool things about this case. But hold on, real quick. But that was your decision to pursue that. Any other district attorney it may have just gone traditional vehicular homicide
and that would have been 4 years. It was because of you we're going all in, chips in. This guy deserves to spend his life in jail. That difference between life plus 236 years versus 4 is because of your leadership of that office.
Well, the initial charge was from John Kilner, who's like-minded. But when we took over the case, the issue was, do we offer something? Is there a plea bargain available here? Because there was real concern, man, as we headed into this trial, like, is the jury going to associate murder with this conduct? Because you can tell them that this is what the law means and this is what extreme indifference means, but at the end of the day, you got people looking around the room who have to sign a piece of paper that say what this guy did was murder. And when you and I say murder, we're talking about, a knife in the heart or a bullet to the head or something like that. This isn't that. But we were able to convince them, and in part, we never really wavered. We never really approach the defense with, here's a plea bargain that's acceptable. It was always, your guy needs to not take another free breath for his repeated conduct here that resulted in death, and it worked out.
That is impressive, because I understand what you're trying to do with the jury is, the defense is going to come at it and saying, well, this guy did not plan to, nor did he take actions in order to murder this family. He didn't do it with avarice or malice. And so this is a mistake, and he has made this, and he should pay pay a price, but he shouldn't forfeit the rest of his life. But you have to come back and say, no, the other family forfeited the rest of their life, and he has a pattern of behavior, and there's nothing to lead us to believe that he is going to change this pattern of behavior at this point. And that's a heavy lift. That is a really heavy lift. I've got a lot of respect for you guys going, for the entire 10 yards and being able to get the first down on this one. I mean, that's impressive. That is really well done.
Well, it's even harder than that, because we can't have that conversation with the jury. We can't talk about he's done it before, so he'll do it again. We can't talk about one life versus another. We can't even talk to them about what the potential sentences are. So the defense at the time of closing says, well, Judge, we'd like to offer something called a lesser non-included that the jury can choose from. And that charge was criminally negligent homicide. That scared me. That made me make a little bit of pee-pee, because criminally negligent homicide is a non-mandatory F5. That means it's a 1 to 3 year max sentence. This guy's been in jail since August. That dude walks out. The minute he probably gets turned out to DRDC, the Denver Regional Diagnostic Center, he's probably put back out into the community on parole.
And the defense is dangling that to them to say, hey, jury, you don't have to get the heavy charges if you don't feel comfortable. You can take the lighter charge and still feel like you've done something for the community.
That's right. And it's got the big scary word homicide in it. So you think they could be like, okay, well, this wasn't murder, but for sure it was homicide. Let's go with that. So, yeah, the stress level was pretty high as we wrapped up this case, but at the end of the day, the jurors were convinced that this was extreme indifference to the value of human life, and they convicted him. And that narrative has turned into these kinds of conversations, and now nationally, where people are like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How is that playing in a very blue Denver?
That is George Brauchler, District Attorney of Judicial District 23. Be sure to follow him on the X at George Brauchler. He does great work there as well. George, this is rightfully so a national story because of your leadership. Thank you to all the good people, law enforcement, Judicial District 23, getting these bad guys like this off the road. Thank you for keeping our community safer, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for letting us tell these great stories, man. I think they matter.
Oh, it
absolutely.
Does. Keep it up. Have
All
a
right,
great day.
we'll continue. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
How cool was that? This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Fantastic hour. Britta Horn joined us, and then George Brauchler joined us.
That was cool.
We had the top prosecutor in the state of Colorado, chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Phone lines are open. What did you hear? If you'd want to join the conversation, what you heard about Britta and her leadership of the Colorado Republican Party, George Brauchler, what he's doing to put the bad guys away. Phone lines open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 12th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Breadman texted in, I'd like to hear those jailed phone calls now of that guy. He's referring to George Brauchler's prosecution of this guy that had plowed into a family, terrible car accident, killed the dad, injured the kids, and the guy was remarking on recorded phone lines from prison that he would be out in just a few years. And thanks to George's prosecution of a guy that was wildly drunk, crosses 5 lanes of traffic, plows into a dad at a gas station while the family's there to buy popsicles for the kids.
Yeah.
And kills him 45 miles an hour. Now the guy doing life plus 236 years.
Yeah, and dude was running to the liquor store to get more liquor. He had drunk out on liquor at home. And so he had decided the best thing, after putting a couple of beers and a pint of Fireball in his system, was to get behind the wheel of a car. I'm sorry, at that point, maybe you forfeit your participation in the rest of our society. There are just some times in which, decision making. I'm not saying you don't get, just blitzo drunk at home. Just be smart enough not to then go out and go to the liquor store. And here's the stupid part about this is there are apps that will deliver liquor to your house. You can get liquor delivered to your home by just going on an app and going boop, 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 and choosing things. So the idea that you then made the decision because you had to get your drunk on to get behind the wheel of a car, I got no sympathy. I have no sympathy for you. That's personal.
No, I agree entirely with you. And what's shocking to me, like the disparity, right? And people are pointing this out in the text messages too. The dude that killed the guy in Jeffco, the illegal immigrant that was driving the truck. That basically got like a few years or something like that. Whereas George, it's just because of the guy. It's because of the leader of the district.
Yeah, it's because of who wants to hold the individual responsible.
Right.
And we talk about this all the time on the show, that DAs are so important because they make the charging decisions. If you want to understand why there are people that are running around in downtown Denver that perhaps maybe you think shouldn't be, well, take a look at who the DA has been for a number of years. Things like that. We heard from George directly that the alternative sentence that was offered by the defense right at the tail end, they're trying to slide this in. It was almost the idea of you've presented the entire class project, and then at the end someone says, and you can also give us this grade. They're adding that at the very end. And so that was a little scary because it could fulfill the emotional response that someone wants in order to feel like I'm holding this criminal accountable. But he was able to convince everybody inside that jury that they needed to put this guy away and that he should not be out on the streets of Denver or anywhere else for the rest of his life.
We got a real problem. I was talking to some law enforcement guys, and I can't tell you who they are, what they work for, or what their names are because of some privacy issues. But they were confiding in me like they work really hard to prosecute people, and these stupid judges with their stupid little bail, whatever, bleeding heart. Oh, this guy shouldn't be in jail. Even though they do bad stuff, it's got to be dealt with. And I know George has to go before these people, so he can't say it. I know law enforcement's got to work with these judges, so they can't say it. I'll say it. I'll say it. These judges got to be thrown out on their butts.
And if
you're just letting these bad guys out, if it's just a revolving door of, well, we're not going to have high bail because they can't afford it. Well, it's got to change. They were telling me that some of these guys are putting their bail, $250 bail on their credit cards and just getting out the next day.
Yeah, and again, I understand. I understand the reason behind some of the idea of lower bail, but the problem when the Democrats and other lawmakers came in to lower or even have, some personal recognizance bonds, and what the threshold for those were is that we were led to believe that the judges involved in this would be the ones making the delineation, that they would be able to say, okay, I have several individuals in my court. Which one of these should have a very stiff bail? Which one should just get a PR bond? And that was going to be discerned because of the that's a bad word, but because of the reverence we have for the black robe, that they would be and I'm using this on purpose, judicious about who? That the person that is more violent would have the higher bail and be held, and the person that isn't would be let go, because the question was, okay, someone that is a non-violent offender that might be petty crime, should they sit in jail for days because they can't raise the bail? But maybe that person deserves a PR bond. But in the case of the dude that has done 2 DUIs and has now killed members of a family, that is not a person that deserves a very low bond in order to get out and run around the streets again. So that's the problem, is what you're outlining, I believe, Jeff, is that the delineation, the discernment of the judiciary in the cases of when they get to choose the bond has been poor in so many instances. They have made bad decisions so that
you put progressives in,
so that we just
judges.
don't trust them anymore. We just don't trust them in some ways.
Lots of text messages coming in about Britta too. People going, Britta didn't even bring up Donald Trump's name during the interview. That's interesting.
I think that's a branding thing, because and the issue being, that's why I asked her about the unaffiliated, the people that aren't in the MAGA camp, and then the MAGA camp. I feel that if you play too hard to the MAGA camp inside the Colorado GOP, you will alienate just as many of you are playing to. And if the MAGA camp gets their fifis hurt because you're playing to the other groups, then understand you probably are going to continue to lose elections. You got to be more practical about this in certain cases. That's my opinion, but they hate me anyway, so they're probably going to listen to me.
People also texting in, why is the Colorado Republican Party not speaking out against some of the horrific bills in the left-wing legislature, saying that, quote, lobbying is not their role? This is interesting. If I were running the Colorado Republican Party, and I'm not, but if I was, I would probably be more active in speaking out on those types of bills like House Bill 1312. But at the same time, Britta's going, look, and I've seen her responses on this. She's out there registering people to vote, opening up offices, regional offices, doing fundraising. She wants to get basic operations of the Colorado Republican Party going, and that's the role of House Republicans and House Senate to go out there or House Republicans and Senate Republicans to go out there and speak against legislation. So probably not what I would do, but look, she's the chairwoman. She wants to run it. I'm willing to give her some space. She's been in there for 42 days. Let's see what she can do. At the end of the day, I'm going to judge her the same way I judged Dave Williams. Are there more Republicans elected at the end of her tenure? That's what matters. So, willing to give her a little space to run that out. So, join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now is time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen, news and comment.
Good Monday morning, 64 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. Woohoo! The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, U.S. and China agree to slash tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with the big news over the weekend, and DJT holding a big press conference right now at the White House, also talking about India and Pakistan, America and China working together. The two have agreed to pause their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, with both sides lowering rates by 115%.
First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs, because they don't want to pay 25, 50, or 100% tariffs, so they're moving them back to the United States. I spoke to Tim Cook this morning, and he's going to, I think, even up his numbers, $500 billion. He's going to be building a lot of plants in the United States for Apple.
And the president headed to the Middle East today for a 4-day trip. The White House says DJT is going to reaffirm his commitment for a free and prosperous region. He also announced that the last American hostage being held in Gaza, 21-year-old Eden Alexander, is being released and is coming home to his family. New Colorado chairman of the Republican Party, Britta Horn, on with the fellas last hour. Her office is well underway, working hard and reaching out, talking to everyone in the state.
Going to different regional offices. So we have one in Denver. We're working on that one in the final stages of that. It's going to be really close to the Capitol for legislators and for, I think, everybody, easier in and out to chat with everybody and have conversations. We're working on one in Grand Junction, and going back up north, we have a team of people working with some of the counties to find something on I-25, maybe around Meade or Johnstown, to get closer to Boulder so we can start knocking doors, making phone calls, making friends, and getting some Republicans elected.
Also, an historic day as DJT inks another order. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt last hour.
We pay an astronomical amount in comparison to other countries around the world. So the president is signing an executive order today that is going to implement most favored nations drug pricing and is going to reduce the cost of drugs in this country by more than half at least. America is going to pay a better rate and a fairer rate to the rest of the world. That's what the American people deserve. This is huge news. And also, I will add, we know that healthcare costs and drug prices were the #1 driver of Bidenflation. So not only are we bringing those down, but we are ending Bidenflation once and for all.
The Rockies fired manager Bud Black and bench coach Mike Redmond over the weekend. Colorado suffered their worst shutout loss in franchise history on Saturday, 21-0. Third base coach Warren Schaefer will be the interim manager for the remainder of the season. They beat the Padres, though, 9-3 on Sunday. The Nuggets lose steam, and they were defeated by the Thunder in Game 4 of their series on Sunday. It's tied at 2 games apiece and heads back to Oklahoma City tomorrow night. The FAA is blaming a 45-minute ground stop at one of the nation's busiest airports on a telecommunications issue. Sunday's commotion was at least the third major problem to hit New Jersey's Newark Liberty International Airport in the past 2 weeks. Dozens of flights were canceled as a result. Already today, dozens of cancellations and delays are reported at Newark, including according to FlightAware.com. So if you're heading out to DIA to fly to Jersey, make sure you check your internet to see what's going on there. 63 in Aurora, 62 in Lone Tree, 64 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olsen, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast here in Denver on this early Monday. Just a few passing clouds this morning, temperatures in the mid-50s. Then for the rest of your Monday, mostly sunny with highs topping out around 85. Partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-50s. Then for Tuesday, mostly sunny. Daytime temperatures near 85, lows in the mid-50s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Let's go back to the phone lines, and then we're going to get to Geno Geraci here in just a second. Johnny, good morning. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Hello?
Yeah, we got you. What's on your mind?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to say I have absolutely no sympathy for these drunk drivers. My son was killed by a drunk driver the day after Mother's Day.
Oh, that's
Not
awful.
this year, but in the past.
I am so sorry.
My husband facilitates a group of people who have lost their family members or friends, and these judges are horrible. In one case, they were given 9 years. The judge came back and gave them 7. And in another situation, when the families and friends came up and wanted to say something about their loved one and what their loss was and how horrible it was, the judge came back and said, "I've heard enough. We don't need to hear anymore."
Oh, geez. Now, Johnny, I got a question for you. That one of the things I was kind of asking George Brauchler about is how do we get the average Colorado voter to care about the judges? That universally, when you hear stories like this, people's hearts break and think this can't be right or it shouldn't be done this way. But until you are personally impacted by that judge, the judge retention thing on our ballot is somewhat looks meaningless. How do we get voters to care?
I personally, when I went in to vote for judges, you don't find how they vote or how they sentence these people. And I think we need to somehow post and easily how they sentence these people so that we can see what they do. 6 years for someone who's killed somebody.
Yeah, one of the things that Brauchler brought up is the idea that Dave Magoya at the Gazette had been doing some work about how often these judges were overturned and looking at what their sentencing was and things. That would be very helpful, but again, who's going to pay for it? Because there isn't necessarily a big pro or anti-judge lobby group out there necessarily. That's the problem is who's going to do the hard work, who's going to foot the bill, and how do we get it out there? I think it's needed, but how?
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is like nonprofit groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. People like that, they have advocates in the courthouses all the time, and you can kind of get an idea. And then there are some attorneys who can tell you about judges, but they're not going to, pay for that. We have a friend who's an attorney, and, we call her a lot of times about the judges and just her opinion. But that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And until you lose somebody, it doesn't really affect you.
I got to ask you, Johnny, how powerless does it make you feel as a person that has lost someone in your family because of this bad choice by another individual, and from where you were sitting, your family in some ways doesn't feel like it's gotten justice? Now, the system says they've dealt with this individual and have moved them along, but how does that feel for you and your family?
I can only go by the people who've actually gone to court because the man that killed our son was killed in the crash as well.
Oh, okay.
And so, but we do look at all these other family members that have to go to court and see it. And my husband sees it all the time since he's a facilitator, he just can't believe it. And we do feel powerless because we're just a family. And if the judge is going to say none of this matters, or we're not going to listen to what you have to say, we're not going to do 9 years, we're going to do 7 or 6 years. This man in the truck, he deserved everything he got.
Yeah,
or more.
I'd agree with you. And Johnny, that's got to be the hard part because things like, okay, this is, I hate doing this, but I think it will kind of crystallize the difficulty in this situation. We talk about a 10-cent fee on a bag if you buy one from going to the grocery store. And people are mad about that because it impacts everybody. But until you are involved in the legal system, or until you lose a family member like you did to a drunk driver and have to deal with a judge like this, then you don't have that impact. There's very few things that a judge can do that will necessarily impact the largest number of voters. So I think that's part of the problem of having these kind of issues dealt with, is because there aren't a lot of people that are feeling the pain point that they do from the 10-cent bag fee. It's stupid. It discounts your pain, but I think that kind of crystallizes some of the laissez-faire or just uninterested attitude that many people have towards retention of the judges. And it's wrong, but that's got to hurt.
It is wrong. The people who lose loved ones in this case, they are the minority. You have to say that. And we just try to get out and do the best we can by doing what we do. And, one of the things that my husband does is facilitate. And we also facilitate a grief class for people who've lost loved ones, not necessarily through drunk driving, but, just to get people to understand through Mothers Against Drunk Driving that's all we can do. We're powerless.
Things have got to change, and Joni is a perfect example of how things have to change. Thank you for taking
thanks,
time
Johnny.
to
Appreciate
share
you.
your story, and I'm so sorry
so hard.
for
So
your
sorry.
loss, especially after a day after Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I imagine that's something that you just carry around for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and the problem is that there's always a reminder that you're never
Yeah.
going to have one of those days. Now, it's a good and a bad thing, but you'll never have one of those days where you forget. And unfortunately, as those people, if anybody that knows, if you lost someone in your family or someone's close to you, that sometimes forgetting about that day they passed is a blessing rather than being reminded about it. But it doesn't mean you've forgotten about them. It means that you're not focused on the tragedy. But in the case of when it happens after Mother's Day, it's always going to be a reminder. That's got to make it extra hard.
We're going to get to Geno Geraci here in just a second. If you're like us, yesterday or this last week has been kind of wild with cold weather, then hot weather, your furnace, AC, having to go back and forth. Well, you need quality system. And friends, we did the research. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning are the folks to call. Listen to this. One-day installation with no stress, personal service from start to finish, and they even followed up to make sure everything when we had our system installed was perfect. Now our home's comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we've even got more peace of mind. Listen to some of these deals. Free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges, $0 trip fee. Price match guarantees on all their equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything out at our house works great, and our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691. That's 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called them. That number again, 720-851-1691. Bill, let's go to Geno.
Excellent. Yes.
Pastor Geno. Thank you for joining Jeff and Bill this
from
morning.
Calvary Temple South.
You are welcome.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
On the faith front, it's been a wild few days. All of us watching the new Pope being elected, and then all the news coming out about him. He's a White Sox fan. Even what his brothers are posting on social media is making news. But, Geno, why should maybe Protestants be caring about this new Pope?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways of thinking about it. I've thought about this historically, biblically, even prophetically. And if you think about it historically, no matter who you are, if you care about Western civilization, if you care about who we are right now, I think it's inappropriate to be dismissive of the contribution that the Roman Catholic Church has made throughout the centuries. Also, imagine you are not a Catholic, you're not even a Christian, you might even be an atheist, but you are concerned about influencers. Well, guess what? There's probably no greater influencer in the world, over 1.4 billion people, than the Roman Catholic Pope. So again, if you go all the way back in history, and you think about the preservation of classical knowledge through monasticism, it was during the Middle Ages that Catholic monasteries became centers of learning and preservation. And that's not even to mention the founding of universities. And so it's a historical fact. Many of the first universities like Paris, Oxford, Bologna were established under the auspices of the church in the 12th and the 13th century. And then who could forget about art and architecture, law and morality, charitable institutions and social services. And so I think we need to give credit, if you will, where credit is due. And I was delighted when Robert Barron, who happens to be the Bishop of San Diego, expressed some grief over the fact that so many people are politicizing the Pope right away. You know, is he conservative? Is he traditional? Is he going to reflect the views of his predecessor, Francis? Is he going to take the church in a direction of traditional virtues, if you will? And all of these things are important, but what Robert Barron said is the most important thing that this Pope has to do, this coming from a Roman Catholic bishop, is if he, in fact, and if the Roman Catholics believe that he occupies the seat of Peter, Robert Barron points out he has an obligation to communicate Peter's message. And what was Peter's message? Well, his first and foremost message was what he says in Acts 3:18, but what God foretold by the mouth of all the prophets, that the Christ would suffer and thus be fulfilled. And so he communicates that Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promises, the death and the resurrection of Jesus, repentance and forgiveness of sin, the gift of the Holy Spirit, the return of Christ. And so the way that I think about this, Billy and Jeff, in part, is imagine now the conversation begins to drift in the area of social values or social concerns, and you have this great big idea of which governmental system has been the most supportive in elevating people out of poverty and marginalization. And so imagine you're making a case for communism, socialism, which degrades into authoritarianism, versus a monarchy or versus a constitutional republic. I think that that's where the conversation should begin as you think about, hey, do the Roman Catholics have arguably a great concern for the poor? Of course they do. So then the real question becomes, what is going to be the best methodology to employ, and which government is going to best support the view of human flourishing? So that's my short answer.
That's Geno Geraci, pastor at Calvary South Denver, joining Jeff and Bill live. We're reflecting on the naming of the new pope last week, and I was disheartened with how quickly, now I know why in some channels, because they deal mostly in politics, so I understand why they turned this way, but how quickly they were asking what the politics of the pope are. And I was disheartened because it should be more about the pope is the pope, and we should be more concerned about whether or not our politicians are following the pope or those teachings if they claim to be Roman Catholic. I thought it was 180 degrees backwards. But what I want to ask you, sir, is what sort of impact will this new pope potentially have on the Protestant and other evangelical religions? Much like the ripples inside of a pond, the OGs are the Catholics, and everybody else broke off. Does it matter how the Catholic pope persuades parishioners, how the Catholic Pope shares his message about how the Catholic Pope talks about the walk with Jesus and finding salvation? How can this new Pope impact the Protestants and the evangelical church?
What an interesting question that is, because using your same metaphor of the ripples, the way that I would think about this, Bill, is that the Catholic Church is the stone that's been tossed into the pond.
I like that.
And it's causing the ripples. And so what is the impact? Well, guess what? The third largest population of Roman Catholics on planet Earth is the United States of America. First largest country, Brazil. Second largest country, the Philippines. Third largest country, the United States of America. Which of those countries has the largest Protestant population? Well, us. So there's a kind of a genius, if you will, to the selection of this particular pope at this particular time in human history. And I think that, again, the great big idea is, again, having these very basic conversations about what do you deeply care about? How can we partner together in establishing a mechanism that will elevate the created order? In Roman Catholicism, there is a high view of what it means to be a human being made in the image of God. There's a high view of life. There's a high view of care for the poor, which is, reflected in the founding of universities, hospitals, and the medical community. So what role? I suspect, and I'm just going to be blunt. This pope will try, I think, to build bridges, not just to the United States of America, but to every country on the earth, but again, under the auspices of how can we best influence the world by being salt and light as we elevate human beings and then oppose the denigration of what it means to be human. So I think that the Pope, this particular Pope, as both a bishop and an archbishop, wrote fairly prolifically about those issues and has argued fairly cogently about the created order. And you'll notice something else about this Pope. His undergraduate degree is in math, where the former Pope might have been a little ambiguous in his speech. I suspect that this current Pope is going to be very careful in his words as he communicates to a watching world.
That's Geno Geraci. He's a pastor of Calvary South here in Denver, Colorado. Now, Pastor, I got to ask you this because you probably felt the same way I have. Okay, I'll walk into rooms with our Catholic friends, and I'm very happy to see our Catholic friends. I consider Catholics part of the family, right? We have some theological differences, but we're followers of Jesus Christ. They're part of the family. There's nothing that I would say that they believe that's heretical, for instance. But I oftentimes don't necessarily get the same sense they feel that same way about me. I get the sense that I might be outside of the family because I'm a protester. I'm a Protestant. How should Catholics and Protestants interact with each other?
Graciously, carefully. There's three words that I like to use, Billy and Jeff, and that is, we begin with clarity. What are those differences? But in a charitable fashion. That's the second point. So we strive for clarity, charity, and then civility. So those are my 3 C's of interaction. Well, and again, it's probably inappropriate for both Catholics or Protestants to assume things that they don't necessarily know. So the most charitable thing that we can do is ask, what do you believe? Now, Billy, you probably are aware of some of the Pew Research data that's gone on. In Roman Catholicism, there's a high view of the Eucharist, communion, sacraments, and, the belief that it's the body and blood of Jesus. Well, 69% of Catholics don't believe that. Now, so much against their own church's teaching. Or imagine all of the Roman Catholics who promote abortion on demand. And there's been a great deal of conversation within the Catholic community of major political figures who have endorsed, embraced, and campaigned and advocated for abortion on demand, and how completely antithetical that is to the Roman Catholic Church. And so it's appropriate for us to begin to understand that Roman Catholicism is a world religion. It has a huge spectrum, and it's inappropriate to just think all Catholics believe the same thing about everything. I think Bill could confirm that.
Oh, yeah. 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 We argue with ourselves often. Yes. All the time. All the times. And we're all so imperfect.
2 Catholics, 3 opinions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Teasing just a little bit, but you understand my point.
Oh, yeah.
And so to Jeff's point, I think it works both ways. And that the Reformation exists for very good reasons 500 years ago. That there were some legitimate differences that had to be worked out and are continuing to be worked out. But again, I suspect, let me just say something nice about this Pope. And that is, I suspect he's a clear thinker. He's a gifted communicator. There's a sense of deep humility that I think is going to spark a number of conversations like we're having right now.
That's Geno Geraci, pastor of Calvary South Denver, joining Jeff and Bill live. Now, last question I've got for you before we have to cut you loose is, if you were in the room with the brand new Pope Leo, what would you advise him is his largest pitfall or briar patch to avoid? Just like playing that 80s Atari game, Pitfall, you saw the hole coming forward. You got to plan for it. You got to make sure you leap over it or grab that vine. What advice, what do you tell him? What pitfalls and briar patch does he have to look out for?
I think there are two things. Obviously, this church has been a nightmare when it comes to child abuse and pedophilia. Yes. It's been a nightmare, which links to the second issue of financial solvency. I think the Pope, better than anyone, is aware of the deep financial stresses and difficulties that the church faces right at this very moment. But I would point out that those two issues are linked together. And I would also argue that if the Pope wants to experience both a renaissance in purity and propriety in the clergy and financial solvency, that a return to traditional Catholic virtues is not going to weaken but strengthen the church. That would be my Protestant 2 cents.
That's Geno Geraci. You can hear him on our sister station, KRKS 94.7 Crosswalk, weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a call-in show, so you can join the conversation with Geno weekdays on our sister station, 94.7 KRKS from 4 to 6 p.m. Pastor Geraci, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, covering lots of topics today. One of them was a case with George Brauchler, where he was able to prosecute a guy who murdered a family by drunk driving, wildly out of control, crosses 5 lanes of traffic, plows into the dad while he's at a gas station. The family is stopped to get popsicles. Because of George Brauchler's prosecution, he was able to push that to a murder charge. The guy's going away to prison for life. If he hadn't, under current Colorado law, he probably would have been out in under 4 years. Let's go to the phone lines. Larry and Aurora. Good morning, Larry. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
How you doing, Jeff and Bill? Yeah, I was listening to George, and I really do appreciate George, especially when he was up and going. And I appreciate him for his fair and balanced in how he go about things, and he try to keep it that way. He try to keep it not political, but what he keeps it as what he believes in, and he has just a really balanced thing to himself. But I want to talk about, see what you guys think about the judges. I think that's one issue with the judges, and whether they're Republicans or Democrats, and we can debate that. But I just seen it over the years of the inconsistency, and we're talking about with drinking and drunk driving, and I'm thinking of is how it just not taken seriously, and for whatever reason. And that's when I look at the holidays come around, come 4th of July, they're going to have the police and sheriffs and everyone on the streets and say drunk drivers don't drink or whatever. And then I think back, I'm saying now, wait a minute. Why is it that they only do it during that time? And it seems to be insincere. And I'm going to ask you guys, when I look at it, and I'm looking at, if you go to the Rockies, you go to the football games from college to pros, you see all of these tailgatings, you see these big old trail and vans, and everybody's drinking, and and they're drinking in the stands. And then after the game, you have all the police officers and everybody basically giving the Spain, go this way and go that way. To me, that's insincere when you're saying stop. So is that about consumerism? Because it's just not realistic when you're saying we're going to stop all of this, but you allow all of this, and that officers are walking around through these stadiums, they're seeing all this drink, then they load it all up in their cars and then carry it home and continue drinking.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I understand what you mean by that, Larry. And here's the thing that we have as far as a society is how much drinking alcohol is tied into celebrations and fun inside of our society. And what I mean by that is, imagine inviting some friends over to your house, and you're going to have alcohol available for them, and it could be the hard stuff, could just be beer. But it would be very different if, as your friends came over, you also there on the table had a bunch of marijuana maybe some cocaine, maybe some mushrooms, since they're now legal here in Colorado, that would be viewed very differently than if you just had the big alcohol spread. And I think that's why we see some of the issues with, one, people choosing to drive drunk, but two, some of the sentencing as well, because alcohol is tied up so succinctly with our vision and our idea of celebrations. If you talk about the Super Bowl and you're going to have a Super Bowl party, one of the first two things someone's going to ask you is, one, what are you serving to drink? Two, what do you have to eat? We're that concerned about making sure we can get our drunk on.
Well, and then the part about that is when you have, like this young lady, I'm apologizing, but she called up and said she lost a loved one. And then, but also we are saying we get these commercials saying and then what they'll do just for that moment, they'll stop all of these people. But it's also, in my opinion, is about consumerism. It's just like when I think about when that old movie, The Jaws, and then the mayor wasn't going to shut the beach down. Why? Because of consumers
There's
and money.
money to be made. Yep. And Larry, we had Darren Weekly on our show last week talking about an increase in DUIs. He's picking up. He's having to put more resources towards enforcement. So it's a real problem. Larry, I appreciate your call.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Look, if you're hurt in an injury case, maybe involving a drunk driver, maybe not, the guy to call, Dan Kaplis Law. It matters who you choose to represent you in an injury case because, first of all, it's going to send a message to everybody else involved in the case about the type of person you are. Dan Kaplis, 40 years of serving people in Colorado, getting justice for them, sterling reputation. That matters. Secondarily, he gets results in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Kaplis is so trusted, he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankapleslaw.com. That's dankaplis.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Man, we've been having a fun show today. Britta Horn, George Brauchler, Geno, Geraci, they're all swinging by, hanging out with us. In the next hour, I want to get into this. Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Republicans starting to release some of their plans in the House of Representatives for what they plan to do. And debates on the Sunday talk shows all over this. Rand Paul saying he's not willing to support the bill in its current form because of the debt ceiling issue. And Bill, I get so frustrated with this. Okay.
Yeah, why?
Because I'm watching the Sunday shows and they're all going, fiscal hawks are not willing to jump on board with Donald Trump's bill. Fiscal hawks are just people that don't want to spend more money than we take in. Why does that make us a fiscal hawk?
Yeah.
Spending more money than you take in is just common sense, in my opinion. Why do we have to have a label, a fiscal hawk?
Yeah, that is a weird one. That's a weird one because it does seem to be just the idea of basic budget responsibility that most adults have to.
Maybe it's because look, in every family, somebody takes on that role of making sure that everything's checked, right? They do the line items, they do the spreadsheets, they run the Quicken, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's for your family, but it's my role and responsibility with my family. So I take budgeting really seriously. And when we spend way more money than we take in, it like personally gets under my skin. And when I watch our government do it, I'm like, can the adults get in the room and stop this from happening?
Here's the thing that we'll talk about with this. What's their motivation not to overspend?
Yeah.
And that may be the problem we're facing.
Ooh, good point. All right, we'll continue the conversation about Trump's big, beautiful bill. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader. We're News Talk 710 KNUS.
and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't
agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff
It
Hunt.
is 9 a.m.
and
in the
Bill
Mile
Thorpe,
High City
the
on this
Jeff
Monday,
and
May
Bill
12th,
Show.
2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olsen, it's the big, beautiful bill. It's hitting the ground. House Republicans and Senate Republicans debating this, especially on the Sunday shows over the weekend. And, Bill, it just feels like the zombies are back. I'm tired of a debt ceiling that keeps going up. Why can't we stop it? Stop it. Stop the debt ceiling from continuing to rise. Spending issues, tax issues, it's all there. And, yeah. I've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, and here's the other part is that, one, what's the incentive for them not to raise the debt ceiling or the deficit?
It's a good question because it's like monopoly money at this point. What's the difference between $30 trillion in debt and $35 trillion in debt? I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it affects anybody's lives, so we just keep on plugging along. 36 trillion, 37, who cares? 38. That doesn't bother me. Just keep getting into debt.
And the
so
other
long
part,
as I get my Social Security, Medicaid.
Outside of Rand Paul and a handful of others, the other question I'd have for our listeners is, when you hear politicians come out and show concern about the debt and the deficit, do you believe them? Do you? Do you believe them at this point? Have they taken the actions necessary? And again, I will hold Rand Paul and a handful of others outside of that. Chip Roy, I think, even though I think he's misguided on some things, I think he's genuine about the idea of the budget. And so I think we've got a handful inside of Congress, obviously not nearly enough. And the two big questions I've got is, what's the consequence to any elected official for not blowing a hole in the debt and the deficit? And two, do we really care?
Right.
Do we?
I'm
we
with
believe?
you on this right now because it doesn't seem like it. I feel like I'm in a twilight zone where we just have funny money and we just spend it. And meanwhile, you can't run your family that way. You can't run your family budget that way.
No,
and so everybody lives in a real world where there are consequences to debt. There's consequences to overspending. There's consequences to not bringing in enough revenue. Like you really feel it. You got to cut back on education opportunities, vacations, cars, whatever it might be. There are real consequences. But when it comes to our government, they're just living in another world. Whatever. Spend whatever you want. Promise. Under-deliver. And it drives me crazy. You're going to listen to this audio from Rand Paul here in a second. But to Bill's point, does it really matter? Grab your phone. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now it's time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen.
Blake Olsen, news and comment.
Good morning. 71 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 85 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
A president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry, too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought.
RFK Jr., historic morning at the White House as DJT pens another order. Prescription drugs and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%.
Unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people.
They're brass. U.S. and China also agreed to slash tariffs. In the big press conference this morning at the White House, DJT also talked about India and Pakistan. The U.S. and China have agreed to pause their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, with both sides lowering rates by 115%.
In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs.
The president hops on Air Force One to the Middle East today for a 4-day trip. The White House says DJT is going to reaffirm his commitment for a free and prosperous region. He also announced that the last American hostage being held in Gaza, 21-year-old Eden Alexander, is being released and coming home to his family.
Got the Americans home.
Thank God.
Love it. Hey, do you think he's
God.
going to return with a different plane?
Good question. Very good question.
Oh,
this week is going to be amazing. I mean, it already is kicking off. It's incredible. I mean, that press conference, I was just watching it for the last hour. I mean, amazing. It's just nuts. But I agree with you on the spending. Jeez. What the? I mean.
Well, and look, RFK Jr. is talking about Trump's courage. He's willing to take on the oligarchs, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, you've got to take on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. We're trapped into these systems where if you try to even just adjust it a little bit so it can become solvent,
yes.
You get lambasted by in an election. They're all scared of losing an election, so they won't address it. But I mean, this audio we're going to play here in a second from Rand Paul is just not sustainable, people. We're way out ahead of our skis on this stuff.
No doubt. We have to do it, as you mentioned with Billy. We have to do it in our own homes, and they need to do it as well. I mean, it's just sooner or later, and now is the time. Couldn't agree with you more.
Got a question, though. Got a question, and this is not something for all of you to answer, but something that I'll plant when Jeff was talking about, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. So if you were facing a budget deficit in your house, how many of us would choose to cut off either retirement spending or healthcare spending? Don't answer right now, but that'll be something we'll get to.
Right.
But if you're going to make that, if you're going to balance your budget,
I get it.
But if you're going to balance the budget, your family, would you choose healthcare spending as one of those first items to cut? It's an interesting conversation, so we'll have that in a little bit.
Yep, I love it. New Colorado chairwoman of the Republican Party, Britta Horn, on with the fellas last hour. As one of our great callers mentioned, Brian, he said that they need MAGA, and I agree. And our office is working hard and reaching out, hopefully, to MAGA, talking to everyone in the state.
Going to different regional offices. So we have one in Denver. We're working on that one and the final stages of that. It's going to be really close to the Capitol for legislators and for, I think, everybody, easier in and out to chat with everybody and have conversations. We're working on one in Grand Junction, and going back up north, we have a team of people working with some of the counties to find something on I-25, maybe around Meade or Johnstown, to get closer to Boulder so we can start knocking doors, making phone calls, making friends, and getting some Republicans elected.
All right, so you have Ziggy's or the Black Bear Restaurant. Your pick. Great choice. Rockies fired Bud Black, and Warren Schaefer will be the interim manager until the end of the season. They lost 21-0 on Saturday, but they won 9-3 on Sunday. The Nuggets try to bounce back. That series is tied at 2 apiece with Oklahoma City in Game 5 in OKC tomorrow night. Hey, back to DJT really quickly in that presser. Brings up the great Sam Snead. And when you bring up Sam Snead, I'm going to play it.
There was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. Then they putt it and they miss it.
I love it. I love Sam Snead. I'll leave you with that. 67 in North Glen, 68 in Englewood, 71 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olsen, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast here in Denver on this early Monday. Just a few passing clouds this morning, temperatures in the mid-50s. Then for the rest of your Monday, mostly sunny with highs topping out around 85. Partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-50s. Then for Tuesday, mostly sunny. Daytime temperatures near 85, lows in the mid-50s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, Colorado, buckle up. Trump's back with what he's calling his big, beautiful bill. But can House and Senate Republicans get on the same page to actually pass it? The infighting is heating up, and we're breaking it down for you right here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Is this the conservative agenda we've been waiting for? Another GOP tug of war? Or are Republicans capitulating when it comes to actually cutting government spending? They always talk about it during campaign season, but when it comes to actual big cuts, are they willing to deliver? Here's Rand Paul over the weekend.
They're so big as to be hard to put your mind around. But one way of adding them all up to say, are these people serious, is to look at what the deficit will do. What will the debt ceiling do? The bill they put forward will allow the debt ceiling to rise $5 trillion over 2 years, all the way through the next election. This is the largest increase in the debt ceiling ever in our country, and it indicates that not only will the deficit this year exceed $2 trillion, that they're planning on it exceeding $2 trillion next year, which to me means they're not really cutting. And if you take the entitlements away, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, if you don't do anything to those entitlements, there's nothing left really to cut. You could cut all of the military spending and you don't get to balance, and nobody really is for cutting all the military spending. So really the discretionary spending, the budget we vote on, really there isn't enough to cut there. You have to look at entitlements, but both Republicans and Democrats have taken the entitlements off the table, and once you do that, the math doesn't add up. So what is really going to happen is the debt is going to go up $2 trillion this year and over $2 trillion the next year. That's what they are estimating. That's why they're asking for $5 trillion. That's not fiscally conservative, and as long as that's in there, I can't support the bill.
All right, I'm a big Donald Trump supporter, fan. I think he's incredible in so many areas. I don't understand why all of a sudden there's not a lack of courage to take on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, defense spending. We have to be willing to do that. And I agree with Republicans like Rand Paul that if those cuts aren't being made, the debt's going to continue to explode, and that eventually there's a cliff. I don't know where it is. Could be 40 trillion, could be 45 trillion, but they live in this alternative universe, our government does, where it can continue to generate massive debt. And the rest of us don't do that in our own personal lives. Let's go to the phone lines. Ben in Denver. Good morning, Ben. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you just fine. What's on your mind about the debt and the deficit?
Well, for a rare occasion, I agree with Jeff. That's one of the situations that we need to address is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense spending is where all the money goes into. So if we're actually, it's a stupid, silly gimmick where they're not actually addressing any of the funds that are actually going into government, actually addressing anything that goes into debt. So Elon Musk, it's just this stupid little silly parade where you actually have the money going into is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense spending. That's where all the money that we're using as a government goes into. So unless you start addressing those issues, you're not going to do anything to tackle the deficit or the debt. It's just not going to happen. And the other
Ben,
thing
part of the problem, though, Ben, is that most voters out there aren't paying this close attention to the deficit, or, as I've raised before, what's the difference between being $25 trillion in debt and $35 trillion in debt? Has it really affected your life? So are we willing to cut services that we rely on in order to balance something that, at the end of the day, doesn't seem to really make that big of a difference in our own lives? What are your thoughts, Ben?
Well, eventually, yeah, there could be a situation that happens because, like China, for example, has a lot of our treasury bonds and tank our economy if they decide to do so. So we're running these situations with tariffs with them, but if they decide to all bonds, they can absolutely tank our housing market and they can absolutely destroy our economy if they decide to do so. So there is a lot of impacts that can come through with us having this enormous amount of debt that a lot of people don't understand. Your average MAGA supporter generally has a high school education and they don't understand this stuff. It's over their heads.
Well, I'm not sure it's just MAGA. I think most voters don't look at the details of finance when it comes to government spending. But Ben, text message coming in. Would you have the same opinion about cutting Social Security and Medicare if you're 65 years old? P.S. Social Security and Medicare are not entitlements. We paid into this our entire lives. We deserve what we're getting out. How would you respond to that text message?
Well, I'd say that, yes, you do deserve that entitlement, or not entitlement necessarily, but you deserve what you paid in. But also, I don't think the system was planned out necessarily that well because, what we were paying into it, 40 years ago, people were living to age, 75, 80, and now that lifespan has increased. So, medical technology has gotten better and, living long.
Yeah,
Ben,
now, Ben,
I appreciate
your phone's kind of cutting in and out on us, Ben, so we're not to let you go. I appreciate that. And yeah, give us a call back again. One of the things I think Ben was really good about, and we needed to kind of put a pin on this one, is the idea of treasury bills and why T-bills in this equation are so important. We saw earlier that Donald Trump backed away some of his tariffs based on the idea there was a big sell on treasury bills. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Like, well, a bunch of people are running to the grocery store to get the bread and the paper towels because a storm's coming. It's not really the same thing. And the reason it's a big deal when treasury bills start to be sold is it degrades the value of the treasury bill is what they're saying. But more importantly, it increases the percentage you're going to have to pay on them. In order to get someone to buy, you're going to have to increase the percentage rate. So what that means to you functionally as a voter is, imagine if the credit card company came to you and said, we're raising the interest rate on your balance. That's what happens when treasury bills start to be sold off. It raises the interest rate on the balance of the debt we already have taken out. That's why it is so scary. So when you hear people talk about T-bills being sold, the reason that's scary is because it's exactly like the credit card company coming to you and saying you're now going to be paying a higher interest rate, not on new purchases, on the purchases you've already made. That's why it's scary.
We're going to get to these phones next. I want to continue this conversation about Trump's big, beautiful bill, debt, spending, and can Republicans get this across the line? I want to talk to you just briefly about our friends at Alarm Detection Systems. Look, living in Colorado is brutal under these progressive policies. There's more theft. There's more crime than at any point. So you got to be able to protect your business, especially you want it open tomorrow. Alarm detection systems, highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could be saving to have just one source for cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same-day or next-day service upon request because downtime isn't an option, and dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms. Over 300 security professionals all working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. They're trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools, and their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com to schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. All right, let's do Jim, Denver. All right,
good morning,
Jim, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, I want to just make clear there is a definite difference. They're totally different. The nation's budgetary deficit and our trade deficit. And from 1980 until 2010, we have what the Federal Reserve calls non-inflation. In fact, they couldn't hit their 2% target for decades on end. And during that time frame, our budgetary deficit exploded. In fact, Reagan positioned himself right behind FDR with World War II as the second biggest spender. And Donald Trump, being our savior, he, after only 4 years, has positioned himself after Ronald Reagan as the world's third biggest spender. So if anybody thinks the king of debt is going to side with Rand Paul and do much of anything, I think we've been promised something in the campaign. And now that
Jim,
the campaign is over,
I want to ask you, Trump's going to make the argument that tariffs will help eliminate the debt. Do you not buy that?
I don't think Trump understands our financial base money, because he has come out even last week and told us with a different set of words that Americans need to lower their standard of living. He said that instead of having 30 items, we should have 2 items under the Christmas tree, and we should pay more for them. And that is reducing our standard of living. The Social Security and Medicaid is a math problem because we've just got too many people going into the system after paying them their entire working lives, and we don't have that many people coming out of the system to the graveyard yet. But in a matter of years, a couple of decades, we're going to have 10,000 people dying every single day. And the issue is going to change at that point in time. So what we need, and what we've not been told that we're supposed to lower our standard of living, but Donald Trump came out last week and said we need to reduce our quantity from 30 to 2, and we may need to pay a few more dollars.
Yeah,
for those
I mean,
quantity of
to be
2.
fair to his side of the argument, because I watched that discussion with NBC News, Kristen Welker, I think is who it was with. The argument that's coming from Trump and MAGA is that we're in a place in our economy where we have more dependent upon government, lower economic mobility, more debt, people are fatter, more suicidal than at any point in American history, and our basements are full of cheap Chinese crap. So we've turned the entire economy into this consumption, and it's just not working. People can't move jobs. They can't move up. They can't pay things. So, yeah, you may not have $30. You may have 2, but he's actually trying to fix some of these bigger problems.
Now, Jim, I got a question for you real quickly. Did you hear on the campaign trail Donald Trump talk about that? Talk about the idea that we are consuming too much, that we need to cut back on things, that things things are going to be more expensive for us, and we are going to have fewer presents for our children under the Christmas tree because we have to fix the economy. Because I didn't hear that, but I didn't pay attention.
Negative. He said the exact opposite. he promised everyone riches while he was pointing the finger at liberals. So what needs to happen is Donald Trump needs to come out and identify the liberals and take away all of their government incoming money. But guess what? As you described the nation as falling into despair, we have come up with and created the biggest block of millionaires and billionaires on the planet. And that is how we measure success, is millionaires and billionaires taking money out of circulation and saving it outside of the outside of the circulation system.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing I'll put on that.
Well, hold on. The answer
Yeah.
then, Jim, is to tax it, to take it away from them?
That's what Trump is doing. If he lowered my tax rate by 1% in 2017, and then my house and my assets doubled, I am still paying more in taxes, period. I had a deferred tax increase on my home, which is a necessity. And for God's sakes, the Federal Reserve discounts in their
The federal
inflationary
government doesn't
costs,
tax your home.
housing.
It's a state-based tax, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a group of state-based taxes, and they all went up. So we've got 200 mill levies on my house. But
right.
we're gonna
what
increase
does
the
Donald
state
Trump have to
taxes.
do with that?
Well, they put $7 trillion into the stock market during COVID, and now we have funds going out and buying up neighborhoods in Georgia and Texas and different areas. We have Wall Street owning housing, a third of the housing that is for sale, and they're not even going to the banks to create loans. They're just pulling money out of the funny money stock market to fund it. They're not taking loans out, and they're overpaying because they know they don't have to pay the percentage that the Federal Reserve sets to the banking system. So we need higher tax rates, right, to tackle what you're talking about. How else are we going to take care of it? Are we going to stop spending money and then our economy tanks and then we have to bail out the whatever our policymakers decide is vital, which is basically everything?
Yeah, the difficulty, Jim, that I think most people don't understand, and when they hear the idea of higher taxes, is they focus on redistribution of wealth, when I think that I find a lot of commonality in some of the stuff that you say, where it should be more of a conversation about the redistribution of assets. And what Jim has just outlined, and I appreciate the call, Jim, thank you so much, is that when you have excesses of money, when you're creating all these millionaires and billionaires, their money needs to work for them. They're not just going to stuff it in their mattress. They're going to try to get a return on investment. And many ways in order to get that return on investments is the purchase of assets. And if they're going to purchase assets, those are assets that other people don't get to purchase. And if they have all the concentration of wealth, those assets disappear. And what Jim is outlining is when that money that would be left fallow otherwise, but needs to make a percentage profit, they put that back into things like real estate and other investments. Then that drives up the housing market, drives up other costs. And so their assets, so what they're doing is they are taking some of the purchasable assets out of the purview of the middle class and concentrating it in the upper class. And that's a problem because those assets are then being taken away. Again, the middle class doesn't get the ability to generate assets, to purchase assets, and to have them grow. And that's how you generate wealth. And if it wasn't generating wealth, that extra money up at the top wouldn't be buying them in the first place. But they generate wealth. That's why the purchase is there. So that's the problem.
The idea that putting money back into the free market is a problem, but taxing it and taking it out of the free market and putting it into government coffers where it's going to be wildly wasted, I don't get it. But join the conversation.
It's about taking the asset out of the market, not putting the money into the system. It's about taking the assets out. And you're not letting the middle class purchase the assets. That's the issue.
Let's talk about an example. Like a house, an asset, right?
Yeah.
So someone with money buys a house as an investment property because they want to get a return on it, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a house they live in. This is an investment asset, okay?
Yes.
They then charge somebody rent to live there, right?
Yes.
Not a mortgage, but rent to live there. Okay. Now a person who probably couldn't afford to buy a house has a house they can live in because they're paying rent on it. That person's also investment person's also hiring managers to manage the property, so they're putting money back into somebody's job and livelihood. This isn't just an asset that just sits out there.
Aren't you making the assumption that the person renting can't afford the house in the first place? We've seen rents be above what many mortgages are here in Colorado at this point. So someone is paying rent right now that is above what I'm paying for my mortgage, and they're living in half the space. And if the person that owns that house is charging rent that is less than what their mortgage is, that's a bad investment because they're losing money on that end. So they're going to be charging what they're paying in the mortgage.
Right.
If not,
At
they're
least,
not making money.
baseline.
Yeah.
Right.
So that means
somebody that didn't have the
person,
cash to put a down payment, right? Because I'm guessing if you're not going to just rent a house to rent a house. You're renting a house because you don't have the cash to do a down payment, right?
Or that there aren't ones out there at that price point necessarily. There's a whole bunch of other reasons for it. But the issue being that, and that's the concentration of the asset. So if that person that makes the down payment, the wealthier person, makes the down payment, now owns the asset, that is preventing the other person who can make the mortgage check. That's preventing them
But they didn't
from
have a
being
down
able
payment to begin with.
But how do they get a down payment if they're already paying the mortgage? They can't.
Then
They
you
can't
have to
accumulate.
live within your means.
They can't accumulate
and you have to save up money in order to get the down payment.
Yeah, tell that to people that are paying more in rent in Colorado right now than you and I are paying on our mortgage. That's the problem. They'll never get there. That's the issue. And
But
that's what
why would you
happens.
put yourself in that situation?
It's not. You see, you believe you're making the choice when the
Well,
assets.
yeah. I mean, because it's a free market. So if you don't like what the cost is, don't spend the money doing that. Go find something that makes sense.
Live on the street. You got to put a roof
Why
over
is
your
that
head.
why are those the two options?
No, the issue is
You have the one apartment for $5,000 a month, or you live on the streets.
No. What I'm saying is you don't have the ability to get into the house because those assets are gone, and that's the issue. Is when the large money and when you have the hedge funds coming in here and buying large neighborhoods and buying a number. Robert Kiyosaki has tons of houses. He owns more than 27 houses, I believe. But those are all 27 houses that other individuals don't have the opportunity to purchase and to grow based on the asset. And that's a siphoning of the assets off.
Stuck in this world where that only exists. There's no free market that can influence that. If nobody can afford $5,000 a month for rent, then nobody is renting at $5,000, and the people have to lower the cost to eventually meet where the market is. But if the idea is, if the solution is we just got to tax to take away these assets so that the money ends up in government coffers, that's like the worst use of that money. That's money that's not helping anybody. It's oftentimes being wasted.
No, the issue is just it's the accumulation of the assets in the top levels of the economy, and that's the problem. That's why we don't have affordable housing at this point. That's the issue.
Oh,
and
the reason we don't have affordable housing is it's impossible to build in this state. It takes forever, and they've had to go through what is that? Lawyers, the stupid lawsuits.
Oh yeah, I've been open about that as well.
The nails were in the wrong place, and so all of a sudden, everybody in the entire metro district sues.
Yeah, so the only things that they build right now are houses that rich people can afford. It's a problem. There it is, and those are the assets, and those assets are those houses are bought up by the rich people.
That's the result of government
and
policies.
Those are the assets purchased by the rich people, and it takes that assets out of circulation. That's the issue. That's part of the issue. It's part of it. It's not the only issue, but it's part of the issue. That's what's happening. Is that when you siphon off assets that are purchased normally by the middle class and you concentrate them in the upper class, then you don't have those assets. You don't have that wealth growth. That's part of the problem. It's not the only problem. That's part of the problem with this dynamic right now.
All right, join the conversation. William and Aurora, we'll get to you next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Trump's big, beautiful bill is being introduced in the House and Senate this week. Republicans and Democrats. Well, Democrats won't support it no matter what. But Republicans are pressing back. They want bigger cuts, especially when it comes to some of the social services out there. As Rand Paul has pointed out, if you take off the table Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, military spending, so we're not going to touch those four things, you're left with 16% of the budget. And then at that point, you're just like, it's like cutting out, it's like the family budget going, okay, you can't get the soda at the machine today, but we're still going to pay the massive car loan for the Lamborghini, right? So you just cut little bits. You got to deal with the big stuff out there if you want to deal with our debt, which is now close to $37 trillion. Let's go to the phone lines. William and Aurora. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Well, you guys are biting off a lot here today.
Yeah, we are.
So one thing is there's a thing in economics called the paradox of thrift. And the simple explanation is that if your family decides that they're too heavily in debt, well, then you can get very austere. You can quit spending money. You can start paying off credit cards. You do all that, and that stuff works very well. But if the whole society does that, the economy collapses. Okay? And so when you get where the U.S. is today, $37 trillion of government debt, but also trillions more dollars of personal, corporate, state, municipal debt. You've got this, and it absolutely restricts the number of options that are available to you. It's part of the problem you don't want to get here is because once you get here, there aren't any good solutions. And taxing, that's great. What taxing does is it removes money from the economy when you need the velocity of money. I mean, the best way to think about an economy, in my estimation, is to think about a mammal. And the mammals are alive when the heart is pumping and the blood is moving. And in our economy, that means the banks are the heart and money is the blood. And you start reducing the amount of money that's circulating, or like I said, what's called the velocity of money. And then you run this risk of what's known as a debt liquidation cycle, where I say to Bill, hey, Bill, you lent me $100,000. I'm really sorry, I can't repay you. And you go, I'm screwed because I owe Jeff $100,000. Now I can't pay him. And now all of a sudden you get that liquidation cycle. So it's easier to point out the problems here than it is to come up with the solutions. But the solutions that most people have eventually kicked the can down the road to is to try to grow your way out of it, to keep the money circulating and to continue to try to grow. An example, the 2017 tax cut. If you look at the federal revenue between 2017 and 2024, federal revenue was up 40%. So that tax cut didn't reduce tax income. It increased tax income because it put more money circulating in the economy, and then it could get taxed multiple times. Okay. The problem with the deficit isn't that the revenue went down, is that the spending went up 70% over that same period of time. So I know I've just covered a bunch of stuff, but this idea that Americans are going to have to cut their consumption, we'll see how that works out. It might work out for you individually. It might not work out so well for all of us.
I got a question for you, William, on that one. When you talked about the 2017 tax cuts, what we did see, though, is where the money was spent, and that was majority of it into stock buybacks and bonuses. Is that, if we were talking about the way to grow the economy, could we have grown the economy in a better form if it would have been concentrated in raises, allowing more economic mobility, job creation, and capital investment? I won't go into R&D because I believe that as a whole, corporations are over-investing in R&D based on the average percentages. Some are doing less, some are doing more, but I do think they're over the course of all corporations, they're over-investing in R&D. So could some of that, while there were some increases, and I did see some quarter increases in federal tax income growth, did the money go in the right place to actually grow the economy? Would it have been different if that large portion of money was concentrated on giving middle-class people more money, raises, more jobs, and more capital investment into those companies? Your ideas?
Well, everything has a yin and yang to it. You know what I mean? It's a two-edged sword. It swings one way, it cuts this, and there are unintended. So certainly, I think cases could be made that every economy, including ours, at every juncture, every second of every day, that there's probably a better way to allocate that capital. Having said that, we do have more. We try to encourage free markets and let that money flow where it is. And I know, we've got a lot of millionaires and billionaires and people are envious of that. But their money often goes into job production. It goes into the bank where it keeps interest rates low, et cetera. So the answer is, of course, I don't know that I'm smart enough to, from a top-down standpoint, say, well, I should have gone over here. Now, I want to take up one other thing you say about over-investing in R&D. Well, I'll take exception to that because I think that the reason the standards of living of the average human on Earth is the highest ever and increasing at the fastest rate ever is because of innovation. And innovation is another way of saying R&D.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up, and William, we have to step aside, otherwise I'd love to continue this for like another hour or so with you. The reason that I say overinvestment in R&D is because there's a basic math problem that says you should be spending a percentage of corporate profits, et cetera, corporate money on R&D, and a majority of corporations do spend more than that base level. But I do believe William is correct that it is that investment in R&D that has led to our higher standard of living. So I'm not against higher investment in R&D, and I would have loved to see higher investment in R&D rather than higher investment in stock buybacks, which
William,
is where 80%
great
of that
call.
went. Yeah.
Very smart. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it,
We
William.
got great listeners. All right, want to talk to you about our friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. If you're losing your hair, you need a simple solution that works. You want the best modern technology, top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration from the experience itself to their unmatched results. You got a receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair? Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments, and get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. All you got to do is give them a call. Here's their phone number, 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. So refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration. Here's their number again, 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Get that work done now so you can look great this summer. Advancedhair.com. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. 86 today, 87 tomorrow. And if your AC is busted, it's going to be a hot one. You got to check out our friends at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. We use them at the Hunt House, and they absolutely nailed it. One-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish. We are so comfortable. And no matter what the weather, whether it's hot or cold, like Colorado, bouncing back here, L&L Heating and Air Conditioning gets it done for us. Listen to some of these deals they've got going on. Free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector, $0 trip free, free estimates, 5-year labor warranty. All you got to do is give them a call. Here's their phone number, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691, or visit bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. All right, Bill, it's been a wild show. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.